miss you.
One minute.
Okay, it's a pleasure. Thank you.
I saw it.
Yeah, she's on vacation. She's in Boston.
Hello. I do too. I like it that you're up here. I feel so safe.
He's here.
I mean, that's the way it is.
What?
She just went ahead and did it. When membership approved.
No, I haven't been touched with Bob. I've been talking to Phil.
I wasn't there. I wasn't there.
And I think we fixed the problem. He's working with our attorney. And he joined the league.
Is this reserved for you?
Media?
Advocacy. Pedestrian development, women workforce.
David?
I owe you a call. Done deal. I've been gone the last 2 weeks.
Madam Mayor, it's 6 o'clock.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this Tuesday, May 1st, regular City Commission meeting to order and ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Mayor Pam Triolo,
Here?
Vice Mayor Andy Amoroso,
Here.
Commissioner Scott Maxwell is absent for the roll. Commissioner Omari Hardy, absent for the roll. Commissioner Herman Robinson,
I'm here.
thank you.
If everyone would please rise for the invocation offered on behalf of Commissioner Robinson, which will be followed by the pledge led by the Vice Mayor.
May our efforts be blessed with insight, guided by understanding and wisdom. We seek to serve with respect for all. May our personal faith give us strength to act honestly and well in all matters before us. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. All right, up next, additions, deletions, or reordering? We
I have
anything?
none, Madam Mayor.
Commissioner Robinson?
I'd like, from consent, I'd like to pull 9A.
9A. Okay, and, all right, so we'll move item 9A to, new business item C. Okay,
And Madam Mayor,
yes,
cut in under City Attorney's reports as a 14C, a report regarding a potential moratorium for uses in downtown Lake Worth.
okay. Are you requiring any decisions to be made?
If the commission desires, you could direct me to draft an ordinance in accordance with any restrictions on the uses downtown, particularly relating to vape shops and tattoo parlors. I understand there's been some concern about those types of uses downtown, so I'd give a report on that, and then if you wanted to move forward, you could direct us to do an ordinance or not do an ordinance regarding any kind of action or changes.
Okay. Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to accept the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Seconded.
Moved by the Vice Mayor, seconded by Commissioner Hardy. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously with Vice Mayor Pro Tem absent. Okay, moving on to our presentations, a legislative update by Senator Bobby Powell.
Has not gotten here yet.
We'll move that around. Seeing none, let's see, legislative update. I know he's here. Representative David Silvers, come on down. Thank you so much and welcome.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yeah, if you a little bit up, you might be better off holding it. You'll probably get the best.
Hold it up. Is
Yeah.
that better? You hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Mayor. As you know, State Representative David Silvers. I represent West Palm Beach, Lake Worth, Green Acres, Palm Springs, Lake Clark Shores. This was a hopefully a once in a lifetime situation with this past session. I'll start with the easy stuff and then go into the harder stuff. It was an interesting session. We didn't get a lot of bills moving along until later on in the session, and then of course about Parkland. So it was really what set the tone for the whole session. But I'll get into that in a second. Some bills that we got passed. I was able to get 3 bills past the House, and unfortunately, 2 of them didn't make it through the Senate, but 1 did make it past the Senate and was signed by the governor. A piece of education legislation that allows children in high school to earn credit towards graduation by completing pre-apprenticeship programs. So it would, better prepare students that aren't going to college for the working world coming out of high school. Also, hopefully, we'll get rid of that stigma that if you're not going to go to college, you're not going to be successful. There are plenty of jobs out there that people can be qualified to and not have to go to college for. And this helps them move along a little quicker for that. I was able to get about $1.2 million in the budget for the district, and I believe we got. I didn't personally work on it, but it was 1.4 million.
1.5.
0.5 million for Lake Worth. That's great. It's right here in the district. So I'm really pleased. And if we need more money next year, please come to me. I'd be more than happy to run it for you.
We always do. Thanks.
Now let me get into the heavy part. Passing bills, getting money in appropriations, that's great. It feels great to be able to do stuff like that. But we all know about Parkland. We all know about the school shooting. And when you have 10,000 students come to not your school, but come to the legislature, and you have some of them come to your office, as I had a few come to my office, and tell me their stories, this was a very eye-opening experience. Now, I'm not sure if all you are familiar with, hey, Senator Powell. Hey.
Hello, welcome.
Hello.
Just doing a quick legislative update on 7026. You want to voice in on it? Okay, all right. So 7026 was the first piece of firearm legislation that we passed in over 20 years, banning of bump stocks, raising the purchase age for a rifle from 18 to 21, mandatory 3-day waiting period, $400 million for hardening the schools, $200 million recurring. It was a landmark piece of legislation. And when I ran for office, I realized, and then when I won, I realized that people would advocate for an appropriation to me or a piece of legislation, piece of policy. I never thought ever that I would have someone advocate for a piece of legislation that was a father or a mother of one of those that lost their lives at Parkland. That's what made this that much harder. I mean, I know this is not easy. I wish I could be all smiles. I wish I could say this was hunky-dory, but it wasn't. It was a tough session. But it wasn't just a tough session for us. I mean, imagine those parents that lost their children. And I voted up on 7026, and I didn't love all of it. And in fact, there was a part of it I really, truly did not like at all. But that won't be implemented here in Palm Beach County. That's the Guardian program. But I did like the part that was the first piece of legislation that, any type of firearm legislation that we had, and the $400 million for hardening of schools. So, and I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, sorry, but this is it was really tough. And, this senator will, I'm sure, describe the situation and the bill a little bit more. But yeah, it was just, I've said this to so many people. When you walk through the chamber doors, it's an absolute honor. And I think that every time I walk through the chamber doors in the House of Representatives. But now the magnitude of your responsibility is that much greater. And you realize it's so much more after this legislation. So that's pretty much, for me and a lot of my colleagues, that's the update from the legislature, at least on the House side. Here's Senator Powell.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative Silvers, and thank you all. You guys, I say guys, this commission does a great job in terms of keeping in contact with me when we're in Tallahassee, especially this year when you were one down. So I'm very thankful.
You sure you like that context?
Listen, I am. And I will tell you all have a great commission up here because they came up and they fought. and they continue to stay in contact with me while I was in Tallahassee. As a matter of fact, I can tell you every single commissioner I was either in contact with or saw while we were in Tallahassee. So thank you for what you do. And Mayor, you know, you and I, we had to go in strong arm. Can I say strong arm?
Tap dance.
We had to tap dance to get into the office of one of my colleagues, the Transportation Economic Development Appropriations Chair, for one of the big issues and things we fought for. Representative, thank you for your hard work. Representative Silvers, as you know, I can walk across the hallway and go right on their floor and talk to him and get things done. You were down one member this year. We were down in Palm Beach County a member, but it was okay. We had the opportunity and ability to step in. As the former chair of the Palm Beach County Legislative Delegation, I was happy to do so. We'll give you a quick legislative update, and then myself and Representative Silvers will answer some of the questions that you may have. I'll try to go through this as quickly as possible. What I'll tell you is, you know, we are 2 of your 160 legislators. Here in Palm Beach County, there are 3 senators. There were 4. There's a senator-elect right now by the name of Senator Lori Berman, who's now representing this area. And there's myself, Senator Kevin Rader, and the Senate President Joe Negron. So a lot of his stuff as the Senate President would have to come through those of us who weren't the Senate President. There's 9 state representatives, inclusive of State Representative David Silvers. We've got here listed, I'm the Vice Chair of the Transportation and Economic Development Appropriations Subcommittee, which means I have the ability to have the ear of the chair in the Senate. I've been a ranking member in the House, which is a whole lot different than being a vice chair in the Senate, and the chair of the Joint Select Committee on Collective Bargaining. Some of the session issues, major issues that Representative Silvers may have talked about were gun safety reform, Senate Bill 7026, education, 7055, higher education, Senate Bill 4, that deals with funding for bright futures throughout the summer, healthcare, nursing home generators. We know that what happened in Broward this year with the senior citizens dying in a nursing home. Opioids, big issue here for us in Palm Beach County. Home rule, it's a big issue for all of the communities that we serve, because it seems like Tallahassee, we tried to take away a lot of home rule privileges. And the tax package, $168.6 million in tax cuts, and then our $88.47 billion budget. Representative Silvers talked about the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas School Act, Safety Act. I can tell you that this is one of the few issues that we may have differed on. It had some good things in it, but one of the things that I can tell you, it raised the age limit for buying a firearm from 18 to 21, requires a 3-day wait period for all firearm purchases. It bans bump stocks, which are those devices that are added to guns to make them automatic. $69 million for stakeholders for mental health. I think I heard we have to verify here. Representative Silver said we had $400 million for school hardening and then $67 million for the school guardian program. What I can tell you is that there were students who came and sat in my office the day after, well, not the day after, but the week after Stoneman Douglas happened, which was on Valentine's Day this year. And one of the things that I heard those students ask for was not a ban on bunk stocks, which we got, which they wanted too, but a ban on assault rifles, period. And also to not push legislation that would arm educators. We put forth in that bill what they call the Marshall Program, which will not arm teachers. However, non-instructional personnel with 132 hours of training will be able to carry firearms in schools. It's not going to happen here in Palm Beach County, but remember, Florida has 67 counties. It will probably happen in Leon County. It may happen in Walton County, Clay County, Osceola County, all these different areas where this could potentially turn out for the worse. And what we're thinking is, you may say, well, at least someone on campus will have a gun if something bad happens. Well, you put those firearms in the schools. Remember, some of these students, and I've done some graduations and I've talked to a lot of the students. These students, I'm a pretty big guy, I think, in my opinion. I'm 230 almost. Solid, RTS, ripped to shreds. And these kids are bigger than me, 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", 250 pounds. And you tell me that, let's say a cafeteria lady is the person who, it could happen, is carrying the weapon. Well, let's say this student gets mad and he's mad at another student. He knows who's got the gun. Why doesn't he just go, he or she, take it from the cafeteria worker and go and use it? That's the potential that could happen. It won't happen in Palm Beach County, may not happen in Broward or Dade because we probably won't put that in place. But it could happen. Also, remember, this is Florida, the stand your ground state, right? If these kids is this big and they're intimidating a person who, or a person feels threatened, then a potential stand your ground case could happen. And I wasn't going to be the one to vote for that and have that on my watch. So the bill passed, and it was a bipartisan bill. It wasn't all Democrats that voted against it. It wasn't all Republicans that voted for it. So it was an act that some people saw the good and the bad in it. I think for me, the costs outweighed the benefits, so I voted against it. Opioid legislation. As you know, in 2016, and it's been a big issue here in Lake Worth with the opioid deaths in Palm Beach County. In Palm Beach County in 2016, 552 deaths were recorded. We don't have the records or the information available for 2017 yet, but I'm sure it was still similar. We created a 3-day medically necessary program, a 7-day supply limit on the Schedule II controlled substances, defines acute pain more narrowly so that we don't have our doctors just randomly prescribing opioids. 2-hour continuing education course for the prescribing physicians, and it requires healthcare providers to check the PDM before prescribing and dispensing these. We know here in Palm Beach County and over the state of Florida, this has become not even just Florida, over the nation, people are dying on the streets because of opioids. And we had to put something in place this year. Now, this is just a start. I'm sure we'll come back next year and tackle it again, but we had to do something. And it's required, as you know, the governor has a state of emergency with regard to opioids going on throughout the state of Florida. So this was the piece of legislation that we moved forward this year. Some of the bills that we moved, land acquisition trust fund within the Department of State that extended throughout, it put it in perpetuity. That passed in 2014 with a 5-year limit on it. This makes it, this extends it throughout. A lot of bills we worked on dealt with mental illness, mental health training for police officers. And one of the biggest bills that I talk about every year, we call it juvenile justice, but that's the direct file of our kids in our criminal justice system. That means kids between the ages of 14 and 17 who are direct filed into the prison system as adults. Once a kid is 14 to 17 and they're filed in the adult prison system, they're an adult forever. And we know if you're 14, the time you hit 28, it's a whole nother lifetime. So we're trying to make sure we streamline that process so it doesn't continue to happen and judges can have discretion. Now, we fought for that since 2000 and probably before that, but since 2009 when I worked for the former state representative, and we've continued to push it while I was in the House, and now I'm in the Senate, and we've got some movement, but it still hasn't come to where we'd like to see. $88.4 billion in the state budget. A couple of points I want to point out. Here, we look at the education budget, $15.7 billion. Commissioner Hardy, as you know, we've increased the amount of money that we're putting in education per student funding. That's right. Listen to what we've done, by 47 cents. 47 cents per student. Not keeping up with the rate of inflation. Transportation, economic development, and tourism. We had in the Senate $322 million for affordable housing related to the Sadowski Act funds. After the Stoneman-Douglas Act happened, those funds were swept. Now we had $109 million put in there. A portion of that, a great portion of that was used in terms of mitigation for Hurricane Irma. Another portion was the state sale program, the State Department Incentive Loan Program. We have a crisis here in Florida, especially in Palm Beach County. When the average median home price is $340,000, that's not affordable to many people, not even me. So we have to do something. And this is one of the trust funds that's specifically set aside for people to be able to afford housing. And what happens with that, and that little amount of money that we have, 20 million people in the state of Florida, that little bit of money that we have, a great majority of it will not be spent in terms of making sure people have a forever home, but a lot of it is going to be pushed towards people being able to at least rent an apartment, because apartments are not even affordable here in the state of Florida. Environmental preservation, we put $100 million into Florida Forever. Of course, as always, for us on the coastal communities, this minute $50 million. We have to continue to fight for more for beach renourishment and beach management. That continues to stay in the budget, but we have to get an increase. Our criminal and civil justice budget was $5.2 million, and then general government $2 billion. The biggest thing I can talk about for Lake Worth is, I should say Lake Worth, Park of Commerce, is the Boutwell Road project, the $1.5 million that was put into the budget for the Park of Commerce. I will tell you, I've heard from all the commissioners. I will tell you that myself and the mayor, Pam Trio, went into Senator Wilton Simpson's office, and we barged in, and I said, listen, you know, you got to see the mayor now. You can't run out the back door. Ain't no hiding. And she went in there and made sure he understood how important it was. And Commissioner Scott Maxwell as well grabbed him. Commissioner Herman Robinson, in one of the committees when you all were up there, he tried to leave out of the side door, and they ran and caught him and made sure he knew how important that project was, not only to Lake Worth, but to all of Palm Beach County when we talk about economic development. So I want to thank you and make sure you applaud your commissioners for that, because it's been a long time coming, but we knew change was going to come. So we got it done.
4th time's the charm.
4 times the charm. And this time the governor didn't veto it.
I know. I want to thank you, too, for all your hard work. We so appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. And I will tell you, a lot of it, Ben is the man who works on our budget and makes sure I know what we're doing and follows up on a lot of those issues.
Remember.
So
Nice
thank
to
you
see you
so much.
Thank you.
The Jerome Golden Center, we got a few dollars in the budget for Jerome Golden, $200,000. As you understand, Florida is 49th in the nation in terms of funding for mental health. So we're still at the bottom, and this is only a tiny drop in the bucket. We did spend a lot of money on the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Act in terms of funding for mental illness. The Place of Hope, child welfare regionalization, $1.25 million. Boys and Girls Club, $1 million in the budget for that. Some other projects throughout the district that we were able to get a minute amount of funding for. And I can tell you that when it comes to Boutwell Road, we were able to get it in the Senate through the conference portion. But when I went to the House, I will tell you that Representative Silvers was there to hold the line, and we had to go back and forth and make sure that he knew that was our priority project, and he wouldn't let them drop that in the House. So Representative Silvers, thank you for that as well. And this is where we end with the issues that we were able to escape session without having some of these terrible things passed when it comes to home rule issues. Senate Bill 574, tree trimming and removal by Stubbe. It would have preempted local governments from regulating the removal of trees on private property. That fell. Senate Bill 1262, election dates for municipal officers. Always, this has been coming, this has been like a hot button issue over the past 3 years. It got through the House and they brought it to the Senate. Former representative, State Senator Travis Hudson came to the House and he started trying to whip votes. And luckily, with at this point, there's 24 members that are Republican and there were 15 Democrats, and both sides decided we were not going to preempt local governments when it comes to election dates through the state of Florida. We wouldn't want local governments, or we wouldn't want the federal government to come in and tell us when we had to do our election date. So we were not with that, and we did not vote in favor of that. We didn't let it get on the floor. He was ready, but we wouldn't let it get on the floor. Vacation rentals. This would have preempted all regulations of vacation rentals, Airbnb to the state, and nullify any local regulations that are already in place. That failed. Senator Stubbe tried to push that. And then the community redevelopment agencies. As you know, Lake Worth, the CRA has been very important. Palm Beach, West Palm Beach, Riviera Beach, all the CRAs in Palm Beach County have been very important. We've already eliminated enterprise zones. So the next thing was to go after CRAs. They went after it last year, tried to come after it again this year with Senator Tom Lee, former President Tom Lee, and this would have significantly deterred locals from using CRAs to benefit their communities, outlining a process basically to eliminate CRAs. And that bill went through, I think, one committee and ended up failing and not going all the way through the Senate. So we escaped some of those bad home rule issues again this year in the Senate. And I'll tell you that I was thankful to be able to work with you all. And if you have any questions, my Senate staff, Ms. Marian Dozier, who could not be with us today, is able to answer the phones and follow up with email, but always here and persistent with us tonight is Mr. Benjamin Durgan, who is a legislative aide who was with us in Tallahassee. So thank you all so much for this presentation. And myself and Representative Silvers can take any questions, comments, or conversation. Thank you so much.
No, we're good. Again, I just want to express my sincere thanks to you too. It was a very rough year, and you guys really had our back when it came to being a man down in regards to representing us on this important issue. We've been trying for an awfully long time. Our staff has put in a lot of time and energy on this, and we're already starting to see the benefits of that. There is so much more coming in, and I'd like to personally invite you to our next big unveiling out at the Park of Commerce area so you can see for yourself firsthand. If you haven't seen it in a while, you're going to freak out because it's so much has been happening there, and it's one area away from our single family homes and whatever else to encourage economic development. And we're even hearing, and no disregard to our neighbors and friends in other places, that people are relocating their businesses from other cities to this area because its proximity off 95. So being so close, and also that straight shot out Lake Worth Road to the Turnpike has made it very valuable. Must be saying something wrong because they're all lighting their lights up. But I'm sincerely grateful to the both of you, and I couldn't have had better partners this time around. And thank you so much for stepping up and helping our city.
Yes. Thank you again for going up there and fighting for us in every capacity that you guys do that. I learned from Senator Berman that a lot of the Sadowski money was swept. I did not know that that was connected to Stoneman Douglas. So, I think we all up here love school safety and want our kids to be safe. It's just a shame that poor and middle income folks have to pay for that instead of other folks. So, my actual question is, first of all, there's the Guardian program, which creates a pot of money, $67 million, for schools to train and all that stuff, individuals to wield weapons. We're not going to use any of that money because we're not, here in Palm Beach County, we're not going to allow school professionals who are police officers to wield guns. Is there a way for us to come back next year, or if there is a special session, for us to allow Palm Beach County and other counties that aren't going to participate in this Guardian program to access some of that money so that we can use it for other school safety purposes that don't involve having people on campus use guns? Because right now it's money on the table.
I think there's going to be some things that will be done with some of those funding sources. What I can tell you is that when we talk about school resource officers, some of that money will be used for school resource officers. I understand that here in Palm Beach County, we don't have enough school resource officers for every school. So a portion of that, and even with this money, that still won't cover the number of school resources officers that are necessary in order to cover our schools. So I believe with that piece of legislation, it doesn't exactly lay out in detail exactly how every dollar should be spent, but there's definitely ways that in the process it can be worked out in terms of making sure some of that funding is used in a manner that's creative for Palm Beach County or for some of the other areas that won't be using those dollars. What I can tell you is we always say this, that we're able to sweep trust funds. We find ways to sweep trust funds. A couple of years ago, I voted against a bill that was pushed by the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services because what this bill did was it gave a $5 rebate back to everyone who purchased a concealed weapons license. And my question to Senator Young was at the time, why are we doing that? And she, we basically, her answer was the gun trust fund had too much money in it. That's the one trust fund we never sweep. So we can sweep affordable housing opportunities for something like this, but that gun trust fund will never be swept. And in this case, that's probably the one trust fund that probably should have been swept when we're dealing with Marjory Stoneman Douglas.
And that's a shame, I guess. My other question, again, related to money in schools. So, obviously we have like the core purpose of schools, which is educating kids, right? And then we have some of the things that we have to do to educate kids successfully, which is to keep them safe, right? And so we got these two pots of money, and it looks like guns are crowding out butter, right? And so, my question is, all the money that we're spending on school safety right now, is there going to be an opportunity for us in the future to come back and convince folks that, hey, we're spending a lot of money on school safety, but the core functions of the school are still being left neglected, that we're not funding? You mentioned the 48 cents per pupil that we increased spending by. Is there an opportunity going forward, if there's a special session or perhaps next legislative session, to kind of push an increase in education funding in light of all the money that we've magically found to keep children safe?
Well, the money wasn't magically found. It was taken from places that it was needed. And in terms of, there won't be a special session about education, I can tell you that.
Okay.
If there's a special session, when we go to special session, we focus on one topic and one issue only, or they'll have a list of 2 issues. Generally, special session's been focused on one issue. It's been redistricting. It's been gaming. If we do go to special session, I anticipate, which I don't know if we will, I anticipate it'll be about gaming. The next session, there's an opportunity to answer that question with regard to education. But remember, we are dealing with a legislature that has a different makeup. And this is a legislature that hasn't been so kind to education. Now, there has been some funding in education. A lot of that was figuring out ways to send that money to charter schools or private schools. There's a Schools of Hope program. So if a student has been bullied, he or she can opt to go to a private school and be a voucher. And that would be paid for, they call it the Hope Scholarship. And that funding comes from the state. Every time someone uses a Hope Scholarship, of course, those are more dollars that are taken away from the traditional public schools. So what has to happen is we have to continue to look at, what we do in terms of voting, who we're allowing to represent us. And a lot of times it's not necessarily just our area, it's the entire state. People have to be mobilized to make sure that who we're putting in office are people who really, really support education as a whole.
Vice Mayor?
I just want to take a moment and say thank you. And Bobby, from the floor, I had the ability to sit in front of you for 5.5 hours. And when Lake Worth actually came to your ear, the look on your face, and he was pissed off that they were pulling it. And I just want to thank you for going above and beyond. And David, you were there, to hear us, and you did as much as you could for us. So I just want to show the importance that they're there for us. Lake Worth is there when they're doing their job. Lake Worth is there, and I want to thank you for that. The only question I had was, Senator Berman had mentioned wet sand, dry sand, and I've heard the impact that it's affecting here. It doesn't really affect our beach, Lake Worth, but both north and south, I hear people already roping them off, which is not good for our residents. What's your thought on the wet sand, dry sand that the governor has? I guess it's supposed to go into effect in July, but people are already roping, both to the north and south of us on Lake Worth Beach.
I need to know more about it when you say wet sand, dry sand.
The privatization of the beaches.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Access to the beach, because you actually had on your list that we were putting money into beach renourishment,
right,
which we all support, but that's our tax dollar going to renourish beaches that are now being cut off under the governor's new ruling.
I will tell you, a lot of it's called customary use. What happens is if someone with someone's property, if they have a survey on the property, I think it's something that went down or started happening in Walton County. The mean high tide water line is always available for people to be able to use in terms of beach. Our public beaches will always be public. Private areas that are private beaches, or I don't even know if we have private beaches, but those areas that are people's property, if they've got a survey or if that's their land, it's still their land, their property. It's not public property. I think what was happening is when you start thinking about it, this idea of a taking, even if you're using, if you use, let's say my yard, for example, there are people who walk through my yard every day with their dog, right? I moved in the house 4 years ago and I haven't said anything, but they've customarily walked through my yard with their dog. Well, the problem is the customary, they leave me surprises when I get ready to come in. I don't have a dog. My dog's invisible, but the customary use issue is if this property is on their property, then they have the ability, they have the right, it's their property to, I guess, rope it off. But the mean high tide water line, people are always able, as long as there's beach, they're always able to get there. And then you should probably look at where people are roping off, because if that's not their property and that's not their sand, and they're just saying, well, this is, you know, I'm just going to go out here and rope to what's mine, that can be looked at, because a lot of times people are taking advantage of stuff that's not really even theirs. So it's something that really needs to be looked at, because if it's their property, it's theirs. But if it's not, I don't think they should be roping it off. So it's something we should really pay attention to.
Commissioner
I was
Robinson?
just going to say that $8 million worth of sand on Jupiter Island is probably going to be dry sand
More than likely.
that we're paying for.
I think so. In terms of the funding that comes from the state, and this needs to be looked at in terms of beach renourishment, most of that is public money, should be spent on public beach area, public sand, not renourishing somebody's backyard. Or if a condominium association owns a specific area of land, they should have to pay for that themselves.
You would think.
I would think, and I would agree.
I want to thank you guys for doing all you do. You know, the fact that you have to call the gun legislation landmark in Florida is probably true. It's a home rule issue to me, really. You know, you make the tyranny of Tallahassee look human when you come here, because I envision King George, and the reason we're, you know, this country was started was because of how Tallahassee is treating our communities, and you know, I'm willing to bring back muskets and you know, but and I'm not a gun guy, but the ridiculous theft of Sadowski money. When you say sweep, that sounds too easy. It sounds like we should be sweeping. That's truly theft of housing money. And then you don't touch any gun
That's right.
funding at all is criminal. And Tallahassee is truly getting to be torrential, tyrannical. Not torrential, but it does rain. You guys, anyhow, you get the picture. I'm sorry. Well, yeah, no,
Might
I
take a while.
won't, because it just needs to be said that the behavior of Tallahassee is being divisive all the way down to local government, and I wish they would make a difference in their attitude towards all of us rather than just some of us.
And of course, present company excluded. Thank you
you.
again, gentlemen. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, you saved all the proclamations for me till I got back, did you? All right. First up, proclamation declaring May 6th through the 12th, 2018 as Municipal Clerks Week. Are you going to accept, Debbie, Andrea, Melissa? Are you going to come up? Here, I'll come down. You never get anything special.
We do. These meetings, every day is special.
Will.
And you should know this because you put them all together. Whereas the Florida Association of City Clerks was established in 1972 to promote and develop the educational and professional status of Florida city clerks. And whereas this organization works in conjunction with the International Institute of Municipal Clerks to provide certified municipal clerk and master municipal clerk certifications for city clerks. That's an awful lot of clerks. Whereas this organization strives to help increase the efficiency of city clerk functions, increase cooperation and assistance with city administrators, gather and disseminate information to improve procedures, and improve the efficiency of the administration of municipal government. Whereas the FACC, as it's called, currently has more than 575 members in 7 districts throughout the state and is proud to have one of the largest certification programs in the country with more than 200 certified municipal clerks and more than 100 master municipal clerks among its members. Now, therefore, I, Pam Trigullo, Mayor of the City of Lake Worth, Florida, by the virtue of the authority vested in me, do hereby proclaim May 6th through the 12th, 2018, as Municipal Clerks Week. We love our clerks around here, right, guys?
Yes.
And we have the week off.
With pay.
Time and a half.
Thank you so much. No. They all know how excited I am.
Okay. All right, up next, proclamation declaring May 13th through the 19th is Water Reuse Week. Brian Shields, where are you?
Right behind you.
You did. Okay. Ready for the whereases? Okay. Whereas safe, clean, and sustainable water resources are essential to Florida's environment, economy, citizens, and visitors. And whereas, although Florida's water supplies are finite, the state's population and need for water resources continue to increase. And whereas water reuse provides a means for conserving and augmenting Florida's precious water resources and is key to the state's sustainable water future. And whereas Florida has established the encouragement and promotion of water reuse as the state objectives in Chapter 373 and 403 Florida statutes. And whereas Florida has risen to be the national leader in water reuse, reusing 760 million gallons of reclaimed water per day to conserve freshwater supplies and replenish our rivers, streams, lakes, and aquifers. And whereas Florida's permitted reuse capacity is over 1.6 billion gallons per day, approximately 69% of Florida's total permitted capacity for all domestic wastewater treatment facilities. And whereas the City of Lake Worth has joined with Water Reuse Florida, the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, and the South Florida Water Management District in encouraging and promoting water reuse and conservation, implementing a water reuse program, and encouraging efficient and effective use of reclaimed water. Now, therefore, I, Pam Trigullo, Mayor of the City of Lake Worth, Florida, by the virtue of the authority vested in my, do hereby proclaim May 13th through the 19th as Florida Water Reuse Week.
Hey, Brian.
But wait, there's more. Oh, no.
No.
Not for you. You only get one. All right. Up next, we've got a proclamation for our internal auditor, Will Brown. But before we do so, I wanted to guide you to the video screen. We've got a little video presentation for you. We'll watch that first, if that's okay, Deb?
Yes, Madam Clerk, that would be great.
In today's world, internal auditors play a critical role in the success of their organizations by evaluating and analyzing the way each department is performing.
A good internal audit function will actually come up with ways to make the company more efficient.
Internal audit plays a critical role in corporate governance and in oversight.
They make sure that everything is being followed, and they may think outside of the box because they're not typically following those processes on a daily basis.
In for-profit, non-profit, public and private sector organizations, internal auditors are leading the charge.
You want to be seen as really a trusted ally, not as an adversary there to find fault, but really there to help management achieve their business objectives, really there to help them succeed.
It's a way to improve how a company operates.
Most people know that auditors are responsible for assessing financial controls, but they also evaluate IT, operations, customer service, and help management find ways to improve operations in every aspect.
People frequently think that it's related to financial processes, but it's absolutely not. It goes into all processes. It's just a matter of understanding the balance of governance and business and compliance and legal.
Internal audit is a risk-based function, meaning that we're out there assessing where the risks are the greatest and dedicating our scarce resources to try to help management have some assurance that those risks are properly mitigated.
All right, come on down. Stand here and take your proclamation.
You got a whole room.
Oh, the whole room? Oh, I love it. Please, come on up, everyone. When is there? Yeah, right against the dais there. Perfect. Look how wonderful you all look there. Okay. Whereas internal auditing is a vital part of strengthening organizations and protecting stakeholders of both the public and private sectors. And whereas internal auditing helps identify and manage the organization's risks and ensures policies, procedures, and controls are in place and working appropriately. And whereas internal auditing is an increasingly sophisticated and complex activity requiring specialized knowledge, training, and education. And whereas internal auditing is an established profession with a globally recognized code of ethics and international standards for the professional practice of internal auditing. And whereas historically, the global internal audit profession promotes awareness about its value during the month of May each year. And whereas the contribution of internal auditors to the success of organizations to the success of organizations in the global economy at large deserves our recognition and commendations. Now, therefore, I, Pam Triolo, Mayor of the City of Lake Worth, Florida, by the virtue of the authority vested in me, do hereby proclaim May 2018 as International Internal Audit Awareness Month. Down that street, they're out front. Just what we need.
Mayor, thank you so very much for the proclamation. Thank you, Commission. This is just another example. Will Brown, the City of Lake Worth's internal auditor. This is just another example of the support that you've shown me since I've come to Lake Worth, and I thank you so very much. I also thank these esteemed colleagues that are from the Palm Beach County chapter of the Institute of Internal Auditors for attending tonight's ceremony. Thank you guys so much for taking time out of your schedules. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And our final proclamation, proclamation declaring May 2018 as Mental Health Awareness and Trauma-Informed Care Month. Marcia Martino, please come join me. Thank you so much for being here. Whereas mental health is essential to everyone's overall health and well-being, and whereas everyone experiences times of stress and struggles in their lives, with 1 in 4 adults and 1 in 5 youth ages 13 to 18 experience serious mental illness. And whereas 60% of adults and 50% of youth do not receive the treatment necessary for their mental health needs due to limited or no knowledge of the needs, barriers to care, or fear and shame. And whereas research recognizes that adverse childhood experiences, which include but are not limited to physical, emotional, and sexual abuse, physical and emotional neglect, household dysfunction, untreated mental illness, or incarceration of a household member, domestic violence, microaggressions, and separation or divorce involving household members are traumatic experiences that can have a profound effect on a child's developing brain and body and could result in poor physical and mental health during childhood and adulthood. Whereas community understanding and available support and services can greatly impact a person's ability to handle their stress and struggles and move forward. Whereas promoting mental health and wellness leads to higher overall productivity, better educational outcomes, lower crime rates, stronger economies, lower healthcare costs, improved family life, improved quality of life, and increased lifespan. And whereas studies show that the effects of ACEs are felt by people regardless of race, ethnicity, religion, gender, sexual orientation, or socioeconomic status. And whereas the city of Lake Worth recognizes the impact of awareness and education, access to services, and acceptance of the importance of mental health and well-being to a person's overall success, and supports the implementation of trauma-informed approaches throughout the systems of care. Now, therefore, I, Pam Triolo, Mayor of the City of Lake Worth, Florida, by the virtue of the authority vested in me, do hereby proclaim May 2018 as Mental Health Awareness and Trauma-Informed Care Month.
I'm Marcia Martino, the Executive Director for NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness, for the Palm Beach County affiliate. Our main office is in West Palm Beach, but we also have an office in Lake Worth, right off 10th Avenue. So many of our members, community members, come into Lake Worth to go to support groups. We have educational programs and advocacy services. So thank you for use of the community. I'm actually a Lake Worth resident myself. Yay. And, you know, hopefully you can get your green on for Mental Health Awareness Month.
I think you save all the good proclamations for me. You wait until I get there. All right. Moving on to Commission Liaison Reports and Comments. Commissioner Hardy?
Sure. So I was sick for the charrette. I did not get an opportunity to go there. I understand that it was very eventful and lots of people got the opportunity to share their views and their visions for what could possibly happen at our beach facility in the future. And, you know, I look forward to finally addressing that and moving forward. The other thing that I was actually able to attend was Sunset Ridges Neighborhood Association meeting, which was last week. Ryan Oblander, the president of that neighborhood association, has obviously been doing a very good job. A lot of people showed up. I don't know that there was an empty seat or an empty bench out there at that park, and that was a very good thing. So thanks to Ryan. And also something that I got to see while I was there talking with the residents is the fact that the gates to the soccer field are open, which is great. So, you know, soccer is no longer a subversive activity. So that's a good thing. And I hope that it stays that way. I hope the marauding bands of soccer players do not materialize in the city of Lake Worth. So thanks.
Thanks. Vice Mayor?
Sober Home Task Force met this month. BDB, I sit on the BDB board, Business Development Board. We met. Palm Beach County League of Cities met. I'm very happy to be reappointed to the Palm Beach County League of Cities Board of Directors. I will be finishing up my Florida League of Cities Board of Directors. And in November, I will be finishing up my 2 years as president of the Gay and Lesbian Advocacy Group for the National League of Cities. So I'm happy to have served on behalf of the City of Lake Worth. City of Lake Worth, you often hear us say we are at the table. You're not at the table, you're on the menu, so I can assure you the City of Lake Worth has been at the table. You heard from the Senator and the House Representative on the issues as we go to Tallahassee and Washington. But I want to do a quick thank you to the Palm Beach County League of Cities, the Florida League of Cities, and all the people in this room that step up, that actually reach out to their senators and their House representatives, because I know the Palm Beach County League of Cities and the Florida League of Cities constantly hear from you, and they take your issues, as we do, to the Senate, to the House, both in Tallahassee and Washington. I will be representing you and the Florida League of Cities on May 15th, a quick fly into Washington, also taking some of the issues to Washington. There's been a couple flare-ups about a Wawa looking at 10th Avenue and A Street again. I just want to reiterate that I voted against it the first time. I'm not opposed to a Wawa. I'm opposed to a Wawa in that location. Please keep in mind that something will go in that location. However, I don't personally think Wawa is the best for A Street and 10th Avenue. Events coming up. We've got the 3rd annual Mango Festival coming up on June 16th. That's a Saturday. The mayor and I will both, also the city manager, will be attending at the Beach Club on the 17th. May 17th for the Finnish American Chamber of Commerce. We'll be talking about issues that are coming up in the city of Lake Worth and the great things that are coming in. Movie night. In the summer, we do movie night in the plaza. Friday night is The Trolls. The following month is Moana. And then the following month is Despicable Me 3. So that's a great way to get the kids out in the summertime, and we look forward to seeing you downtown. Just finishing up, every year, Officer Rashkin goes out to the Sweet Corn Festival and gathers up a truckload of sweet corn and comes back. Everybody that gives your $15, he'll drop it off for you. So I'm very happy to thank you again this year for my sweet corn. It was great. And this year I got 2 cases, and I've been sharing it with people. So they all thank you.
Where's my sweet corn? No.
I got some. I got some for you.
And he's got a big truck.
He's got a big truck.
Commissioner Robinson.
The internal auditor left before. I wanted to thank him for. He's not just a dollar counter. He's an efficiency person too, and he's helping to make our city more efficient. And I wanted to thank him for it. And the respect that his other professionals coming was nice to see. Earth Day was a great success, probably the biggest ever, only to be bigger next year. So I wanted to thank Brian Kirsch and the Scottish Rites for that, and the Kiwanis. I hope we're going to hear about Bryant Park's Derby Day on Saturday. I understand the Mango Grove is redesigning their raft for July 4th, and looking forward to that. Sunset Ridge was certainly well attended, with probably 30 people there interested in Crime Watch, and it was an interesting meeting. The Casino Charrette I was proud to be there probably a good bit of the day and listen to all the positive interest in making our casino property a better place. There was people at tables with different ideas, and listening and talking, and it was a really a good time for positive input about Lake Worth. I on Saturdays go to the Bridges has probably 10 families show up about ways to improve their lives, the quality of life of the community, and I really commend them for the work that they're doing down there. Design Guidelines met at the casino and had a lot of good questions, good turnout, interest in design throughout the city, regardless of being in a historic district. People care about their properties regardless of whether they're in a historic property or not. The LDR work continues. The Leisure Services Rec to Go meets on Wednesday at 4 o'clock at Sunset Ridge Park, and they get a good turnout, and it's kids getting out and off their electronics. Saturday, Lake Worth Sail Club had 7 sailboats out, 20 people appreciating the waterfront that we have. Code Department is working on red tags, and apparently they focus on Wednesday. It's working, but it's never going to be done. I'm interested in the funding that is collected by Code being available, the fines that are being collected by Code, whether a person that is being has a code issue, whether they can have access to funds on a loan basis from just that money alone. I think it might be helpful if money is an issue, because some maintenance is something beyond some people's reach. That's about it for me.
Okay. Glad to be back, everybody. Missed you all. Only 2 weeks, but it felt like a lifetime. I had a chance to go to the formerly MPO, now TPA meeting. A lot of discussions. They're rotating. If anyone's shown up at the County Commission building, they're rotating it right now. So it's going to a different city each month. So last week we were in Green Acres, and they hosted it. And a lot of talk about PalmTran and the bus routes. And basically, they've been tasked by the County Commission to improve services for the same money. No money being added to it, but to improve services. So the question was put to county commissioners: do we continue to serve the same routes, some of which may be underserved or underused, I should say, but people are used to those specific routes, or should they go and money's being used in more busier areas that are utilizing it? Should more routes be added to that? And the county commission came back and said, don't mess with the routes, from what I've heard from that discussion. Doesn't help us, downtown areas and growing areas like we are experiencing right now. We have a serious transportation problem. We need to bring back the trolleys. We need to get that local transportation back. To remind everyone, we did get the appropriation through the MPO, formerly now TPA. I'm going to say that for a while until we all know what the TPA is. But we got the approval for the funding of 3 trolleys just a few years back. But they would not give us those trolleys until we had a business plan in order on the operation of those trolleys. So you can't get that grant funding for the trolleys. So we can physically get the trolleys, but we can't physically realize them until we actually have a funding plan. So we're working with the CRA to put those plans in place, and I think we're closer than we've ever been before. So that's really good news. I don't know about you, but I used to use the trolley system on a regular basis. It's probably one of the few at the time, but now with all the new faces that we have in town and the popularity of different sections of our city and the return especially to the seniors in our community to be able to post office and grocery shop and all the things, now that we have a downtown supermarket and whatnot, I think you're going to see a lot more usage of that thing and a whole new resurgence. We're looking for alternate forms of transportation, and we need, we're the city that uses the bus routes and things like that more than probably any other city, and the trains and the tri-rail and whatnot. So I'm looking to improve the lines of communication on that, keep fighting for Lake Worth in every discussion that we have, and trust me, they're used to me fighting there. I think they're kind of liking it now. Derby Day, I'll be there. I'm going to be a judge, I heard. I'm looking forward to judging those fabulous Derby Day hats. Also, this Thursday is National Day of Prayer. It used to be the mayor's day of prayer, but we can't say that anymore. So I will be there, and I will be leading the discussion and leading the prayers from all faiths and all non-faiths and people that just have ideas about faith. But everyone will be together, and we'll be celebrating the fact that we can have our opinions and we can have our beliefs, and we can share together, and we all can come together and create solutions for our communities with love and respect for one another. So I encourage you to join me there at Scottish Rite on Thursday for lunch. And you can contact Carol Garrett or Ted Brownstein in reference to that as well. All right, thank you all. Back to, let's see, public participation of non-agenda items and consent agenda items. Anyone? I see some new faces in here. If you've got, this is your chance to talk about anything that's not on the agenda. You get to talk about those things too, but you have to put in another card for that item later. So you need to put in a card for if you've got something on the agenda that you saw that you want to talk about. No? Just to talk about something in general, then you need to fill out a blue card in the back and submit it to this shiny-headed gentleman over here. And I'll call you up one by one. Just remember to just state your name and your address. So if you didn't write it on your card, I can write it down for you. And I'm going to be kind of a stickler on a lot of things. I had a chance to look at things and to reassess things, and I'm so glad to be back. So let's go by the rules, everyone, and we'll make sure to mention your addresses, because I know how difficult the city clerk has it when she can't collect them and has to go back and try to figure them all out. So, Bob Lipa, you're up first, followed by Richard Garcia.
Bob Lipa, 728 North Lakeside. Apologize for not writing that down. I serve on one of the advisory boards, and I know that we serve at the leisure of the commission. I also know that all of us...
It's not your time to talk, Commissioner. I'm sorry.
I also know that sometimes we could be sticklers, sometimes we could be aggravating, and if you want to remove us, that's also within the jurisdiction up here. Doing it in a polite way is a wonderful thing. We're all neighbors. I was on holiday out of the country when Richard Garcia was removed. The way that it was done, I found it an abomination. The fact that the media was here and it was posted on live media, I find it shameful. We're neighbors. Who called him? Why? You should all be ashamed, or whoever is a part of that should be ashamed. With that, I'm seriously considering dropping from the boards that I sit on. I still have to give it more thought.
Richard Garcia, followed by Todd Townsend.
Madam Mayor, just a point of order. I've asked the city clerk. Michelle's put in a card as well, and she wants to yield her time to me.
Okay, that's fine. State your address, please.
720 South Elmwood. So, Madam Clerk, are we going to do 6 minutes or 2 3 minutes?
2 3 minute.
Thank you.
Give me a second. 7 o'clock. 3 minutes and go. Richard Garcia, 720 South Palm Way. I want to address the city attorney's report from a month ago, April 3rd, where it was determined that the meeting of September 19th of the Finance Advisory Board was not properly called and noticed. It actually was. If you listen to the recording from our August 7th meeting, you'll hear the Director of Finance tell me exactly how to properly call a meeting, and that notice is not 72 hours that the city attorney would lead you to believe. It's 24 hours, and the city clerk can affirm that because she has to me. In writing in this worksheet here that the finance department uses, it says clearly, post the agenda 24 hours prior to the meeting. As far as authority goes, Madam Mayor, you're looking in the right spot at the ordinance of the FAB, but where it said that we can call a meeting anytime we like. It's furthered here. The chair shall have the power to schedule special meetings or cancel regularly scheduled meetings as the workload of the board requires. This is ordinance 2012-22 that created the Electric Utility Advisory Board. So for the city attorney to say that authority does not exist is incorrect. One other anomaly in his report was he said he spoke to the additional 5 members that were at that meeting. It's impossible because there were only 4 additional members at that meeting, and he only spoke with 3 of those. So authority was there. It's 24 hours, not 72, and he spoke to 3, not 5 of those. But we'll get back to that in a minute. How did this all start? How did we go from a properly called and noticed meeting that was publicly accessible to ADA compliance to to a kangaroo court that led to a lynching at the end of it. It started that night when my board sent me here, those 4 members sent me here to ask you why we weren't presenting at the first hearing of the budget that night. I suggested to you that that required a dialogue, and you agreed. You directed the city manager to make that happen, which he did. 3 days later, he, the then vice mayor, and myself met at Caleros for lunch, where I was asked, what's in your report about the beach? I said, well, we voted unanimously for a public-private partnership at the beach. You can't say that, said the city manager. There'll be red signs all over town. The vice mayor then said, there'll be people that'll be coming out of the woodwork. I was then asked about the golf course. I said, we voted unanimously to repair the golf course and rebuild the golf course. You can't say that, said the vice mayor. That's a political firestorm. But then the vice mayor asked the question, can't this wait until after the election? And I said, no. It's already on the record August 28th, and that's what they say is when the fight started. That's what this is all about. Sunshine's a red herring. They were trying to keep the board from saying the things that they were going to say, and I was standing up for it. Now, I've been to ethics and to the state attorney's office twice, once in December when this whole thing started, and then right after your little tea party a month ago. And the state attorney's office suggested that I contact the media. The fellows at ethics pointed over to the IG's office and said maybe I should go there, and across the street to the civil court and said maybe this should be settled there. Now, to that point, I have been contacted by attorneys, and I haven't decided what to do about it, but it seems that I should be seeking the appropriate representation whose practice would have the multiple disciplines necessary. And again, Madam Clerk?
Go.
The multiple disciplines required for something as complex as this. Now, where would that liability fall? It can't fall squarely on the city attorney's shoulders because he has no autonomy, therefore no authority. He does as he's told. The city manager was driving this bus for the last 7 months that you've tried to stop to happen. It shows you what a runaway train city management is when the mayor can't step in the way she has. I call for the resignation of Commissioner Maxwell and Commissioner Hart. And if he doesn't resign, I'll seek his administrative removal. He doesn't deserve to sit in that chair.
Directed towards me, please.
He's laughing behind you, Madam
It's okay. You are still supposed to direct towards me
directing towards
and make no statements directly to any of my city commissioners. Thank
Very
you.
good, Madam Mayor. Very
Thank you.
good.
I get to take it all.
Very good. I would seek his administrative removal. His words and his actions that night proved him unworthy to hold that chair and represent the citizens of this city, having thrown one of them aside as he did. You were the only one that stood up, if only for protocol. You stood up to defend that something should be heard here. It's your strength that carried this through, and you deserve to be the mayor and to sit in that chair. I call for his removal and his removal as well. I could see lawsuits against everybody here, including WPTV and their parent company of Scripps, because how did they get here? Nobody was standing up and pointing at me and saying Jack Hughes. The citizenry was standing up and saying, wait, something's wrong here. There was this wave of skepticism over the whole matter. Michael Murphy wrote me in his resignation letter several months ago, you're never afraid to speak truth to power, and Lake Worth is better for it. And that's a great statement, but power doesn't always want to hear the truth or let it be known at times. And when it doesn't, it tends to act badly. And pushing back against bad behavior and beating down lies is to be considered difficult to work with, color me that. If being rogue means that I'm standing up and fighting toe-to-toe, that my board be unmuzzled and heard, I'm that guy for that. I thank you, Madam Mayor, for your leadership, and I thank you for your friendship in this matter. But this is not the end of this. This is going to be a white-knuckle ride, guys. I'm telling you, all the way through.
Straight
Strap yourselves
directly.
in. Laugh all you want.
Direct towards me,
Laugh all
please.
you want.
Thank you.
Laugh all you want.
Todd Townsend, followed by Todd Velez.
My gosh. I could have gone to the improv.
Wait,
and seen something
ready?
fun.
Ready? No comments, please. We've got no comments during it.
Hi, Todd Townsend, 502 South J Street. We all love Lake Worth. Look at the intensity we got going on here, right? But we do have to back up and realize that with all this cool stuff and pictures and everybody's working together and making all this cool stuff happen, we have a major faux pas sitting out at the beach now, don't we? Currently, with the parking situation there, the buildings can't be used. They can't be, set up to be used. I move right now that we build a 3-story parking garage on the left side as you go into the beach, just inside as you cross A1A, and you go into the beach right there on the left. And on the 3rd floor of that parking garage will be a walkway over to the 2nd floor of the building, so that we can then have private parties, and that building can be used for weddings and all kinds of other cool stuff to make us money that we obviously need. So I'll be working on that, and I'll be starting a bit of a public relations campaign to make that What's that?
All right, what, yeah, I'm sorry, we can't go, this isn't enough time. You guys can talk afterwards, but please,
yeah.
you can talk afterwards.
So yeah, I'll be starting a public relations campaign to see that that is done. So we'll bring it to you all when we get it together. Thanks.
Thank you, thank you. Todd Velez, followed by Jessica Shaw.
Hello. I'm going to, Lucerne was the original name of the city, which was lucid or bright light, which I find appropriate. As I had spoken a couple months ago over the tapestry theme of weft and warp and to and fro and the whereas, I'll lead into this. I'll do an update on the Bible Museum. It's rolling. I see you on a pterodactyl with a hollowed out log like the Flintstones, and you fly up there, but it looks like it'll be a hotel in about a couple days and you'll fly up, but I'm working on it. You're going to go up to Washington with 12 pastors. April, I thought was Mental Awareness Month, but it's also Literacy Month. That leads to the 28 Storm of 28 pop-up book. That's I've been talking to somebody. We're kind of getting that rolling, so that hopefully will be ready for September. Kept it very positive. The city had to rebuild itself. The Presbyterian Church had to rebuild itself. May is Sexual Abuse Month, which I'm going to touch on that again later on. May is Mental Health Awareness, and with my studies with some of the churches and the Presbyterian Church, I found something out which was touched on with the senator. Our motion picture history of Lake Worth. West Palm has the American Songbook Summertime, written on Clematis and the Flagler Drive, and Palm Beach Story is an old black and white movie reflecting Palm Beach. Lake Worth history is a silent picture promo film from the teens, and then it goes into something that's recently discovered. Cross Creek kind of reflects Lake Worth in the teens and 20s with the Rawlings story of the people who lived there. So people should check that out. We also go into the Rose and the Body Heat and Harry and Son, and there's another film that kind of maybe represented Lake Worth. I say this smiling. Reputation, Good Old Boy Network. Is Lake Worth sexy? White trash? It seems to project that. That was the image then. In the Presbyterian history, I found that Lake Worth has the first Presbyterian church in the county. The Comer was the minister from 37 to the 60s and built the church as it is, and also was very friendly with Breglib, which is in L.A., LW, L.A. Breglib in 28 discovered a lot of corruption in the policing there, which was the Changeling, which sort of reflects a touch of Lake Worth, Palm Beach County, because they touch on the Storm of 28. This led to me finding out that we're the Baker Act capital of the county.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go into that much later. I see I fell as wrong.
Thank you. Jessica Shaw, followed by Ryan Oblender.
Hi, I'm Jessica Shaw. I live at 219 3rd Avenue South. And I'm here from the Bryant Park Neighborhood Association to formally invite you to our Derby Day party. It'll be this Saturday. It starts at 4:30. I think the race is at 6, so there'll be plenty of time to buy sweeps. We have affordable sweeps, $2 and $5. We have high roll-in sweeps for $20. And there'll be contests, attire hat contests. I'll be wearing a sillier hat than this. And I can't win, so I'll be, but still, the field's wide open. But please come. We would love to have you. We're so excited that you're one of our judges. And we cordially invite everyone here to, we'll be at CWS on Saturday at 4:30.
Thank you. Ryan Oblender, followed by Joseph Mariuma.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, first want to thank you. I guess Ryan Oblender, I believe 1702 North A Street. Keep forgetting that part. Last person. Well, not the two before.
At least you wrote it on there.
Yeah, I wrote it down. I want to thank Commissioner Omari Hardy, Herman Robinson, Richard Haskell from the Roads Improvement Project, and Lauren Bennett for attending the Sunset Ridge Neighborhood Association meeting last week. It was actually very well attended. Like to see more of that. It turns out old-fashioned flyers are what works the most. Instead of all the stuff you can do right now, flyers happens to get the most attendance. Speaking, I don't want to repeat anything that was talked about Rec to Go, but that's every Wednesday up until June 6th, I believe. Just thank you for choosing Sunset Ridge to be the pilot program park, I guess, for that. The kids really like it. The first meeting, the first attendance was kind of small, like probably a couple dozen, but friends told friends, and the next one got bigger. So the one tomorrow, I guess, will even be bigger. I can't wait to get into one of those balls where you can kind of like just roll down the field with. So it's pretty cool. It's for all ages. It's mainly for the kids, but I think some adults might come, do some recreation. So that's fun. Up until the field gets closed for renewal or refurbishment or something like that in June. Real quickly, touching on the beach charrette, there was a sticker fiasco I just wanted to mention. Green means good, red means bad, but in the beginning they were giving everyone red dots telling them that meant good, and then later on they introduced green dots saying that meant bad. So for next time, show up with both sets of stickers. Green means good, red means bad. Easy to remember. The other way was kind of hard, and I had to, anyway. I think at one point, Commissioner Robinson took the postcards and put them in the back because it was getting too confusing. Last thing I wanted to talk about was the developments that are going in Sunset Ridge. There's new construction, single-family homes, and more. Traffic considerations, stop signs, stoplights, things like that. So, thank you.
Thank you. Joseph Mariuma, followed by Michelle Burnswine. Oh, I did.
Thanks for having me. May it please the commission, Mayor. Before I talk a little bit about myself, I just want to say that I love the city of Lake Worth. My parents have lived here for about 20 years, and I've lived here myself for several years, so I love Lake Worth. So my name is Joseph Mariuma, and I'm running for Circuit Court Judge on August 28th. For the past 11 and a half years, I've worked at the Public Defender's Office. During that time, I've been in court day in, day out. I've handled thousands of cases, and I've tried over 100 trials. And those trials range from homicide all the way to simple traffic offenses. I've also been in front of many judges, and I've seen what works and what doesn't work. And I've learned that a judge should be fair, respectful, and efficient. Those are the qualities I want to bring to the bench. In terms of fairness, that means looking at things from a law enforcement perspective and a defense perspective. I think it's important as judge to be that neutral arbitrator. I've dedicated my entire career to serving the public, and that's what I want to continue doing as judge. Again, my name is Joseph Mariuma, and I'm running for Circuit Court Judge on August 28th. And a lot of people have trouble remembering how to say my last name. So just remember, Joe for Judge. Remember. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Michelle's time was transferred over, so the next up will be Anna Santa Croce, followed by Chip Guthrie.
Okay. I just wanted to say, I didn't read what was the number of the, I guess it's when the commissioners were, no, the senators were here about the propositions that were more statewide from Florida. Just out of curiosity, like, why do we create, guns and arms in general? I've heard of horrible, like, not just school, but domestic assault situations from the 50s and 60s, from history, from history books and all of that. But, just why do we allow for gun creation within our state in general? I'm a New Yorker. I'm born and raised in New York, but why do we allow gun creation in the state of Florida or to be sold? And I took the only job that I could for a while at Walmart in Riverhead, New York. I actually worked for Walmart in Riverhead as a college grad for the only job that I could get, but I couldn't explain it. We actually dealt assault rifles. It was like, you know, the only labor half the town could attain. We worked for like $8.25 per hour, and young students had to handle guns. I mean, why do we create guns in general, let alone, you know, just all of that? But I don't know. I'm just, that's just all I wanted to know.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay.
Chip Guthrie?
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Chip Guthrie, 823 South Palmway. Did I say that right? Here tonight, I've been on many boards in this city. Served on a code enforcement board back when we had one. I've served on CRA very recently, and now have just been appointed. Thank you very much, Mayor, to the Historic Preservation Resource Board. Very proud of what people the amount of time that goes into voluntary positions. What I saw when I went back on the tapes and watched what happened to a fellow volunteer board member was very disturbing to me. When you heard of and what was being trying to said is that he serves at your pleasure, and he can be removed with or without cause. And apparently, you know, from what I saw, pretty much without cause. Deal with a very well-seasoned individual that was enthusiastic about his position on that board, was trying to get as much information from the city, was tasked with bringing that back to you from the perspective of an outside person, because you all don't have the time to sit back and look at all the facts and figures. You have a board that does that for you, and can come back and make recommendations based on these are your peeps, these are your constituents, and they are out there volunteering their time, many hours of their time. So therefore, the reward that somebody got was a very unceremonious dismissal without giving him a chance to address. And it really bothered me as a citizen. It bothered me as a volunteer board member, and it bothered me on very many levels, because I also know the individual. So you know, I know the decision was made, and whatever's going to happen, but it just really bothered me, and I wanted you all to know. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any more cards, City Manager? All right, seeing no more cards, we'll move on to approval. No, we don't have any minutes. Consent agenda, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Hardy, second.
Second.
Seconded by Vice Mayor. All those in favor state so by saying aye. 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 All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Let's take a quick break, everybody.
Cops are all over the place.
Omar. Here.
Thank you so much. Are you ready to?
Yes.
Just let me know. I just have to turn this on.
Didn't know I participated in a murder.
Madam Mayor, we're back live.
Okay, let's resume this Tuesday, May 1st, regular city commission meeting. We're moving on with public hearings. Item 10A, resolution number 25-2018, public hearing. Approve a historic preservation ad valorem tax exemption for the property located at 514 South J Street.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Mayor, good to have you back. Mark Stivers with Department of Community Sustainability. I can make this as brief as you want. If you want to go through the full presentation, we can. But this is basically, I'll show you the pictures. This is a house that has been successfully restored here in the city. They applied for the ad valorem tax exemption. They have received their completion by the Historic Resource Preservation Board. It's now before you for final approval.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Commissioner Vice Mayor?
Couple questions. So tell me about, so it's just a ad valorem tax? All the other taxes, so emergency taxes, everything else stay in place?
It's the difference between the pre-construction appraisal and the post-construction. That gap is held for 10 years. So that helps them recoup some of the costs they did to put into the improvements for the house.
Is this homesteaded or is it a rental property?
That I don't know.
And we're from Minnesota.
Because, you know, I'm going to vote for this, but I just want to make public that I'm always concerned with nonprofits or LLCs coming in. Yes, they do beautiful work. Yes, thank you for doing the work. But I'm concerned that we're continuously taking, and I know this is something that we offer, but it's still concerning to me that we're taking things off the tax rolls when they are not homesteaded. And, you know, South J continuously and continues to be, and the sheriff can back me up, that isn't one of our best neighborhoods, and we continuously fight to have more patrol there. I work with a lot of the neighbors in that area. It's not my district, but I work with a lot of neighbors in that area. I know there's nothing you can do, and I'm going to support this, but just moving forward, however we write the laws or however we present it, you know, I'm more comfortable with homesteaded properties, people that will be living there and take value. Like I said, there's a lot of rentals in that area, and the homeowners are struggling to fight to bring that neighborhood up. So I just wanted to make that.
And just to be clear, this is not homesteaded.
Okay.
Commissioner Hardy?
Yeah, you know, I just want to say that while there are many nonprofits operating within the city, when Dorothy Jacks came here several months ago and discussed, you know, the different properties that we have here in the city, it was clear that we did not have some sort of disproportionate share of nonprofits here in the city, right? So that problem that we thought we had turned out not to actually be a problem. And in light of that, and in light of the fact that many nonprofits do great work, and in light of the fact also that it's not really our purview to treat nonprofits differently than we treat, you know, for-profits, or differently than we treat individual residents, you know, I just want to say that I think we should be very careful about trying to, you know, use the law, you know, use the ordinances that we have here, to use these, you know, votes that we take as an opportunity to treat some groups of people differently than we treat other groups of people. So, you know, that said, obviously, you know, I support this, and I look forward to voting for it.
Vice Mayor?
Again, my words have been twisted. I merely wanted to make public comment. Yes, I work with Dorothy Jacks on a regular basis. And yes, I work with the neighborhood and these neighbors in and around this property. And again, I support nonprofits, I support LLCs, I support the residents. But again, we need to just be very specific that we do not, you know, that we don't become top heavy. And, you know, I think that as we maneuver through Dorothy Jacks' office with some of the issues and the unique things that are popping up, with people not paying taxes. It is not fair to the residents that are paying taxes and that are homesteaded and that do it the right way to allow other people not to do it the right way. Thank you.
And it seems obvious that they've gone through all the hoops that you've asked, so they've done it the right way. And it
Absolutely.
looks nice, and we know that when we have areas or neighborhoods that, you know, we know that improve property values and taking care of one's lawn and painting and all kinds of things really help to change the perspective of a neighborhood and make neighbors feel good that good things are happening. And it looks terrific, so thank you very much. Do we have any public comment cards on this? Oh, sorry, Commissioner Robinson.
I just want to say that this is one of the incentives for being in the historic district.
Absolutely. One of the only ones. Sorry. I speak from experience. Sorry, I wasn't downing the historic side. I was just speaking from my own trials and tribulations in my house. Okay, we've got a motion on the floor and a second. I see no public comment cards. All those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, please. You caught me just in time.
I know, I'm sorry. Michelle Sylvester, 525 Lake Avenue. Just a note. I was under the impression when I first saw the picture that it was a single-family home, but now there are 3 meters on the wall. And so does that mean there's 3 units now in the house? So it's not a single-family homestead property anymore? Okay.
Yep.
But much improved.
Oh, without a doubt, much improved. Okay, that's all I want to say.
All right, thank you. We've got a motion on the floor.
Just
And
a point of clarification, it was 3 units prior to, so when he restored it, it's staying in the same condition as it is, just 3 units.
it was 3 units prior. Okay. And Michelle Sylvester just spoke. All right, we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to new business. Interlocal agreement with Solid Waste Authority of Palm Beach County for delivery of municipal solid waste and municipal revenue sharing recycling program. Come on down, Mr. Brown.
Melissa. Yeah.
Got the whole crew here.
Next. Hello, gentlemen.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Commissioners. For the record, Jamie Brown, Public Services Director. With me tonight, I have Felipe Alfazo, Assistant Public Services Director, and Jason Yeager, Solid Waste Supervisor. We also have Willie Puz from the Solid Waste Authority here tonight as well. First and foremost, recycling. Single stream, dual stream. Single stream is what the city currently has right now, where every resident has a single container. All of your paper, cardboard, plastic, glass, everything goes into that one container, commingled, and that's how we collect it. Dual stream is what everyone else in the county has, where you have your yellow and blue bin, paper products, glass, plastic, and everything else in the yellow and blue bins. Before 2008, the city actually had dual stream through SWA. What happened back then was there was no revenue share back of that 10 years ago. So there was really no money being made on recycling. Waste Management came along with single stream and said they would actually pay us $10 a ton. So the decision was made back then by the commission to go to single stream, so we would actually start getting some revenue for our recycling. Fast forward 10 years, issue a single stream. High contamination rate. So the way we actually collect all the single stream is with automated side load. So if a resident fills up a majority of their can with just household waste and then just puts bottles and recycles on top, there's nowhere for us to tell what's in that can until it's actually dumped into the load. We obviously don't get paid for contamination, but we have a very high contamination rate on average. So a lot of residents are utilizing that can as basically a second household garbage can. And as of September 30th, our contract is ending with Waste Management. That $10 a ton we've been receiving would now go to us paying them $85 a ton if we wanted to stick with Waste Management. Obviously, the finances don't really work out there. So the other option was to look at going back to dual stream.
I realize I didn't get a motion or a second on this, did I?
But you haven't had any conversation, Madam Mayor. As soon as you do, you can take a motion if you let him do his report.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to give it an overview.
Okay.
So yeah, so those are basically the two options in front of us. Stick with Waste Management, go from actually receiving $10 a ton for our recycling to now having to pay them $85 a ton, or go back to Solid Waste Authority, which obviously means we're now going to go from a single stream service to a dual stream service. So it's back to sorting out all of the recycling. Obviously there is another vehicle that would be involved with this as far as the collection of the recycling in this new format. There is going to be a huge public relations push, both on our side as well as help from SWA, as far as getting the educational component out there and making sure that everyone is aware of dates and times when everything would switch over, what can and can't be recycled, what goes in what bins, the whole deal. So there's going to be a huge push on that front as well. But what's before you tonight is the actual interlocal agreement, which was approved unanimously last Monday through SWA's board. And that's what's in front of you tonight to approve the interlocal agreement. And we already had an agreement with them for our household waste. This is just an update to that agreement and then adding in the dual stream recycling on top of that. So that's what's in front of you tonight for approval.
I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Hardy, second.
Second.
Seconded by the Vice Mayor. Just a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
All the vehicles that we purchased for single stream, those big giant ones that lift all those bins, what happens to them?
We still utilize them in
For-
regular pickup as well.
For regular trash pickup?
Correct.
Do we have an excess of them now?
We do not. We do not.
Okay.
We actually had to, as I mentioned, purchase an additional vehicle. It's basically, it's a 60-40 split, so it basically keeps your different types of recycling separated. So
It's going to be tough getting people used to, I mean, they're used to having their stuff in open bins, and now to have a closed door compartment for all their stuff in one place is going to be.
that's why there's going to have to be a large educational component to this, just to kind of get people up to speed on this new way. And basically, approval tonight would then allow Solid Waste Authority to actually process the order, so we can actually get all the carts ordered. Because you know, we're going to have to pay for the carts. And the way we've worked it out is
what carts? I'm sorry.
The actual containers,
the bins.
Okay. The bins.
Sorry.
So 50% of the revenue that we'd be making each year would go toward the actual repayment of the carts, and 50% we would keep. So that's what we worked out with SWA.
Now, in other states, they've had different bins. Like I know my brother's out in California, and they have a bottle can bin. They have the paper bin. They have, I mean, but they're full size bins. Has Solid Waste done any of that? I mean, do they have any of those sizes or different? Please, yeah. I'm sorry. Come in.
For the record, Willie Puz, Director of Public Affairs and Recycling for the Solid Waste Authority of Palm Beach County. Madam Mayor, Commissioners, nice to see you.
Thank you.
What we have from a recycling perspective is an 18-gallon, it's a rectangle, probably about the size of this, blue and yellow bin. Blue, again, is what Mr. Brown had said was blue is for your commingle, your glass, plastic, your aluminum. Your yellow is for your paper, your cardboard, and things of that nature. Now, we also have a 25-gallon round blue, and what we did is we did a pilot project 3 years ago. And as the trend was going towards single stream, and single stream gets you the 95-gallon cart, which you're familiar with, we wanted to see if the larger bin would collect more material that would be cleaner, knowing that there were a lot of issues with contamination. We used North Palm Beach as our pilot area because they self-hauled, and it was a manageable number of units. And over the course of the year, we saw that there was a 10% increase in the commingle that we got from that city just by providing the larger bin. So we do have the 18s, we have the 25 blue, and with our new contract, we'll be looking at what other bins we may be able to bring into the system.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Again, education. Break it down a little bit for us as far as you had said we were going from making $10 to paying $85. Now break it down a little bit more. So moving now, we will be paying what? Because we're going to pay back the actual equipment,
Correct.
And get 50% of the profit?
Well, it's not the equipment, it's the actual bins themselves.
Okay, so
they ordered.
they're gonna give us no bins as a partnership?
No, basically the cost of the bins were 220,000.
I'm sorry, what was that?
220,000.
Okay.
Is the cost of the bins citywide. 147 of that is what we would actually owe back.
Okay.
So we would owe 147,000 back over the course of however long it takes to pay back, doing 50% of our revenue each year, going back to the actual bins themselves.
And then what's the split once we pay off our debt? I mean, are we making money on our recycling? Or
We will be, it's market rate, the way that SWA has it set up. And I don't know if you want to elaborate on the actual, how you guys split that out, but.
Because for years, we've been making money on our recycling. So will we still be making money on our recycling?
That's the goal. That's what we want everybody to do is ultimately is to recycle right so the city can make money. As what was brought up earlier, we didn't have a revenue share 10 years ago, but we have a revenue share program now where the cities that self-haul, they get the total tonnage of what they collect. The cities that are like an aggregate where the same hauler goes to a bunch of cities, there's a different percentage in the calculation that we go through and give them a certain percentage of the tonnage that they collect from multiple cities. Okay, once that goes to our recovered materials processing facility, we sort it, bale it, sell it to market. Of those revenues, we take the processing cost out, and then we share that revenue back 50-50 with the cities and with us because we do the unincorporated parts of the county as well.
And we will be self-hauling?
You will be self-hauling.
Okay.
So self-haulers seem to make a better deal overall. Since the program started 10 years ago, we've given back to the cities $9.3 million. So that's been the revenue share for all of the cities that have been in the program. And what we did is, whenever it was brought up that it was a $220 bin investment, and you'll be paying back 147. What we did is we looked at the number of units you had for single-family homes, thinking they were going to get 2 bins each. We looked at the multifamily that we're going to get the bigger 95-gallon cars. And then we added that up for what it's going to cost, and that was about $220,000. If Lake Worth would have been in the program through attrition or broken bins or natural replacement, we looked at a similar city, which was Royal Palm Beach, and similar in size, and looked at their replacement cost and the number of bins, and it turned out to be about $40-some-odd thousand. So that's where that is going to be paid back over time. And so with the 50-50 share that you're going to, or with the 50-50 split that you'll get from the recycling revenue, we'll take half of that, you'll get half of that until that $140,000 is paid back, at which time City of Lake Worth would get 100% of that revenue share.
Okay, and that's where the education, because we know that we have a large amount of contamination that we've been dealing with for a couple years now. So we just need to make sure as we move forward, because you look at the contamination too as when you pay us, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so, you know, we need to catch that here. Now, my next question is, what about food waste? Do we have the ability to recycle food waste under this program?
No.
No.
It's only recycling.
Just recycling.
Correct. And I want to address the contamination issue, and so you see how we're going to look at that going forward. So of all the trucks that collect recyclables in Palm Beach County, they bring them to us, right? The facility on 45th Street. If a load, or one of our transfer stations, if a load is deemed contaminated, okay, they would have to pay a specific fee, $250, and the cost for the tipping fee for garbage, which is, I believe, $42. So in the first 90 days that we're going to be shifting from the single stream to the dual stream, we want all that material to go to our recovered materials processing facility so we can make sure what's coming in and how it looks. If it's deemed contaminated, the city is not going to get knocked for contamination because we know this is going to be a change for the residents and it may take some time. So the first 90 days, that $250 is going to be waived. Also the garbage tipping fee of $42. The next 90 days, if there are still contamination issues, we're going to be looking at not charging that $250 fee, but charging the $42 garbage tipping fee. We're very hopeful with all the educational campaign that's going to be going on from us and in partnership with you, that the residents are going to get it. They're going to embrace it, and that contamination issue isn't going to be there, at which time your trucks can go to whichever facility is closest and there's not going to be a charge going out after 180 days.
And we'll have a clear list of what contamination is, what it looks like, and how to fix that problem. And how does this affect with businesses? We're gonna go back to cans for businesses, or will we have larger dumpsters?
Yeah, it's gonna be.
Because we used to have cans and carts for businesses.
It's still gonna be carts. There'll be 95-gallon blue and yellow carts for businesses.
Okay, so we'll go back to that. So we need to figure out, you know, some of the locations and things like that, because we had that issue with locations, especially in the downtown tighter areas.
And keep in mind also, you know, with the dual stream process, the contamination rate is always lower just because you can see what's in the bins versus our larger single stream bins. You couldn't see what was in there when we were dumping. So now we're gonna actually see what's there. So if we look in a blue bin and we see a lot of paper products, we're just not gonna dump it. You know, there's an actual stick. It's like a ticket, you know, that sticks right on the bin itself that actually notifies the homeowner why we didn't actually collect it and what should be going in that bin. You know, it's a SWA has the tickets. They're very informative. It has all the information on there, what can go in, what bin, what.
Yeah, we just need to be very clear, because then that comes back to us.
Yep.
Where they're calling us and saying, you didn't pick my bin up this week.
Correct.
And then, you know, we have to explain why, and again, you still go out and pick it up.
But there's a little bit more to that process as far as able to police what we actually are collecting to help with the contamination rate with the dual stream process.
Commissioner Robinson?
So these carts they're open bins.
The 18-gallon bins are open square.
Yeah, and everybody gets an 18-gallon?
Single-family homes will get an 18-gallon rectangle.
Can you request a larger one?
You can request a 25,
And
but
do you
the
pay?
initial set out is going to be 18.
And when you request, do you pay extra then, or?
No.
No. So, these things aren't gonna have lids on them at all?
No.
And
They're the
then-
regular things you carried out before.
Okay.
Yay.
Well, you can just hope that it isn't too breezy on collection day, that's all. Good.
Commissioner.
I'm sorry, Commissioner.
Just so you know, City of Lake Worth is the anomaly within Palm Beach County. So all of our messaging about what goes in blue and what goes in yellow and what should be thrown away is we do that countywide. Unfortunately, it didn't really resonate with city residents because that's not what you did. Our messaging is going to stay the same. We're going to, embrace the city and how we reach out to them. And then the same issues as you're talking about with the wind and the open containers are the same issues that we have countywide and that we've been able to address. So we're very confident and very excited to have the city of Lake Worth back in and making it a successful recycling program. We're going to be generating a lot of revenue share.
I have a question for you. I mean, this is something that I get from a lot of people where I know that, say you have, this is going to sound silly, but I'm going to say it anyway. You go to Costco and you get the giant jar of pickles. That one's not recyclable, but the other one is recyclable, or the little tin, or people will take the plastic that they buy certain things in. Those little things that you buy hummus in that are that big, they're not recyclable, but the other thing is, how do you know which is recyclable? People that will take all their cans and they'll put them inside of plastic bags and put the plastic bag inside because it holds all the can. I mean, there's so many things that are recyclable, not recyclable, yet they're glass or plastic, and people are trying to be good, but end up disposing of them in the wrong way. And how do you know which jar is recyclable and which jar isn't recyclable?
We have two things to offer. One is plastic bags should never go in a recycle bin. So you can just flat out say, no plastic bags in the recycle bin. And the reason is...
Then how do the grocery stores recycle plastic? They just take them back in?
They take them back in and they put them, you put them in its own container. So all it is plastic bags.
Gotcha.
The plastic bags, when they come through our system, go over conveyor belts and star screens and a lot of moving parts. And all that does is get wrapped in. Every day we have to cut that out, which costs time and money and effort. And from a plastic perspective, just about everything is recyclable. It's a matter of how it can be processed and can it be processed accurately. What we say is anything that is a food container, if it is that big jar of pickles, recycle it. Glass, recycle it. What we can't process easily and sell to market is the plastic containers larger than 2 gallons. And there's international policy going on right now that's affecting the recycling market. And those mixed plastics, those oversized mixed plastics, are harder for us to move.
What about odd-shaped small plastics? Like you get a thing of
Not the-
cheese that's in a plastic thing.
What we would tell
on
you
top.
is to put the cap on the bottle and put it in your recyclables. And the reason is whenever the recyclables go over, your blue bin recyclables go through the process, the first thing that it goes through is a magnet, pulls out the metals. The second thing is a glass crusher. So if you leave the cap off, that glass crusher conveyor is going to drop that cap right through. And then that becomes a contaminant in the glass.
Okay. Now, and Jamie, for you, one of the questions is, how many, I'm sorry, I can't even think of it right now, but we have 2 pickups right now for recyclables a week for each zone?
Well, no, we have one recycling pickup.
We used to have 2 pickups.
We currently have one pickup.
When we used to do it this way, we had 2 pickups. So that was my main question about this one, is that we used to have it because of the odor and the smell, and the people were complaining in the neighborhoods because those the smaller, you know, because they're open, that they're smell. I mean, are we going to go back to that? And that's going to cost us a lot of money if we have to go back to 2 pickups a week.
What's up?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
countywide, we have 1-day collection of recyclables. So we're very confident with what we have in place that has been in place for a lot of years, and that the city would be able to follow suit with that as well. Residents will be able to request additional bins if they need them for their recycling. We have the larger 25 blue, which they can, get once we do the initial bin drop. And then residents, what we encourage or allow residents to do throughout the county is that if they want to go to a home improvement store and they see a bigger bin that fits in their home or that they can cart out to the street or out to the curb, if they want to buy it themselves, they can. So there are other options for residents if that 18-gallon isn't acceptable or isn't big enough for them to store their recyclables.
Well, it's just, if you go by on the single source that we've done in the past, you go by on recycling day, the odor is because people don't clean their cans or bottles or things before they put them in the recyclable bin. So it's not like a...
It's going to be an adjustment, but again, countywide, this is the same process that we have all surrounding you throughout the county limits.
Oh, my mother started the first recycling program in New York back in the early 80s. So I get it. I know, and I'm for it. It's just I just know the city, and it's recyclable glass and bottles are pretty enormous on pickup day.
Well, like we mentioned, it will be an adjustment, like we mentioned before.
I'm just laying it out there because we used to do 2 pickups a week, so just keep that in mind. Commissioner Hardy?
Yeah, I just want to say that it is going to be a change, but that our residents are pretty smart, and between their intelligence and between the intense marketing effort that I'm sure we're going to embark on in conjunction with SWA, I think that we will get it right. And so I'm confident that if we go this direction, that there might be some bumps in the road, but at the end of the day, it's the only rational option that we have at this point, or at least it's the option that if we're rational, we should choose. Yeah, I kind of look forward to seeing how we'll handle this change. So,
Commissioner, this is the one thing that I can offer you to that is we're excited by this. One, because no city that we know of has gone from single stream back to dual stream. And as the issues of contamination keep rising and the cost of processing single stream recycling keeps going up, this is a great case study of how a city can do it right. And we're looking forward to taking this case study out and showing how it can be done right, going back to dual stream from a single stream process.
Yeah, it's a tremendous opportunity for the city.
Vice Mayor?
Just real quick, I've been out to your processing plants and we've taken groups out. I'd like to maybe, set some of those groups up for some of the residents that like to see, maybe not have educated themselves on the way it works out there. You guys do a great job. So if we can maybe set some of that up through we have a great visitor center. Okay. Maybe set up some of that through our visitor center to get the residents that want to actually physically see how it's done.
And you can attest, I'm sure, that once you actually see the enormity of it and how things actually work, you get it. It'll click, and you'll understand why there are 2 bins and why it's so important to sort correctly at home.
And as the residents go out and look at it and come back and talk to their neighbors, and I think that could help with our education process. Thank you.
I'm glad we're rational. Be careful what you say and how you say it sometimes, gentlemen here on the dais. All right, we've got a motion on the floor in a second. Do we have any public comment cards?
Yeah, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, we do.
She's Cheryl.
I'm always late.
Not a problem.
Is there another one up there too, or no, that's for something else?
That's something else.
Okay.
Good evening, Cheryl Rashkin, 1302 South Palmway. I like the big recycling bins. I just wish it was bigger because I have to go and steal the neighbor who doesn't recycle. I have to get his every week and put it behind his yard so you guys won't pick up two at my house. That's okay, you guys are great. Because we do recycle anything and everything we possibly can at my home. The bins that he's talking about, I used them, you know, for many, many years, and I was sad to see them go when they first went. But I tell you what, the single-use bin that we have now is really great. It is large. I do know that there is a large municipality in the state of Florida that gives their residents two of those large bins, and they routinely go out and they do a spot check on the different neighborhoods to see if they're doing any contamination. That's only in the little town of Tallahassee. So they do that. So maybe in the future, I know it's not going to go forward for this time for the renewal of the agreement, but maybe you want to investigate that in the future. There are other areas that do the large bins. In fact, they have 4 bins up there. They have one for their regular waste that's picked up twice a week. They have another one for their yard waste, and they have 2 for recycling. And and you have to do it that way. You know, you don't put your garbage in plastic bags. You have to put them in paper. You know, so there are other communities out there that do the things that we do at a bigger scale. So maybe we want to investigate doing that for the future. But I personally like those big bins because I want you to bring the big ones to my house and to the neighbors next door so I can use his too. Thank you.
Thank you. Ryan Oblender?
Hi, Ryan Oblender again, 1702 North 8th Street. I was just trying to remember, my memory doesn't serve me very well what happened last time around when we had the yellow and the blue one, but I do remember that I got stuck with like 3 or 4 of these things that the city never came and picked them up after the switch to the single bin. So I'm just curious to see how this will roll out where the city does some kind of collection program. It takes all our old large bins away and just doesn't leave everyone with the bins remaining. And here's some new bins, but figure out how to get rid of your old one by yourself. So.
And save the other ones in case you need an extra.
I mean, if we can keep them, that's great. We can turn them into
the blue and the yellow ones.
Oh, the blue ones, yeah. I turn them into compost bins. Yeah. You know, I drill holes in them and things like that, and it's fine. But that's what I do. But anyway, I'm just saying, like a lot of people will have these bins left over if the switch goes forward. So, thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Can you talk, Waste Management's gonna pick up all the old ones, right? Do we get money for that, or they were from them?
We will be collecting the old ones. As Mr. Oblender just mentioned, there will be an option for residents to keep their current bins if they want to use them in their backyards or for other purposes. But if they are left out front, they will be collected, because we will no longer be collecting any recycling in those bins. And like I said, if they leave them out front, we're going to take them and we'll be recycling them.
We can't paint them black and use them for trash.
But we don't get credit for them or anything. They just made the agreement that they're going to pick them all up if we want to get rid of them.
No, we will be the ones doing the collection. The Waste Management is not going to collect anything.
Okay, so what do we do with them when we collect them?
We're going to recycle them.
Okay, so that will be a clear message too, that if residents want to keep them for whatever reason.
It's part of the whole educational component. This will all be rolling out as part of that, but there's going to be a date, like an actual time frame when we will be doing the drop off of the new bins. Obviously, there's going to be a point in time when residents will have both the new yellow and blue bins as well as their current single stream bin. And there's going to have to be an educational component as far as what date we'll be collecting those single stream bins and what date they'll go into effect and the whole deal. So.
And how soon do we think this will go into effect?
Well, the contract would start October 1st. So obviously the goal is to have everything in place by October 1st. So everyone would have their new bins. We had already gone and collected all the single stream bins for people who wanted to give them up. And again, if people want to keep them, that's fine, as long as they don't sit them out front.
Okay, you got your work ahead of?
Yes, it's gonna be a nice couple months, right in the middle of hurricane season.
Nothing this year. Commissioner Hardy?
My only question, which was kind of cheeky that Jamie already answered, was whether we would recycle the recycle bins. So apparently we are. And my other question comes from an audience member, and it's more of a proposal, and maybe we can think about it. But if we can recycle them in a useful way, by perhaps putting them in a park or something like that, if we can find a way to fix them, or to a location, we could use them as trash cans. So just a thought.
Agreed. All right. So we got a motion on the floor in a second. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here. They appreciate your answers to the questions. Okay, moving on to item 12B, Economic Development Incentive Agreement for 1601 North Dixie Highway. Who's here to present? Mr. Waters? Dolores? Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second? Okay. Moved by Commissioner Hardy, seconded by the Vice Mayor. And you have a presentation for us?
We were just going to go over the agreement itself. There really isn't that much to present.
Okay.
Included in your packet was an executive brief, and then attached to that was the incentive itself. I'm going to try to pull up the staff report. As the mayor mentioned, this is economic development incentive agreement for 1601 North Dixie Highway, which is a proposed slightly mixed-use housing project. That'll be apartments, 230 units. It has not come to the site plan process yet. It will be before you probably in the next few months as a planned development. So we can't go into too much of the particulars about the project itself, since it will be discussed by you after it goes to the Planning and Zoning Board. But in working with the developers, who their whole team is here, the whole gang, over the past few months, it became apparent that this site was a little bit challenged when it came to infrastructure. And you may recall that maybe 2 years ago, we had another housing project come forward that wanted to partake of an infrastructure improvement incentive that was based on infrastructure funds that were already in the capital improvement program for water and sewer and a little bit of road work. Those projects have not been implemented yet, but they are still in the capital improvement program. So when this team came forward and wanted to do a project at the same site, we proposed we are going to be having to do these infrastructure improvements at some point in the future. The money has been budgeted. So we gathered people from the electric, the water, the sewer, the stormwater, and roadway departments, and we were able to put together a collection of infrastructure improvements monies for those 4 areas. Anthony. Yes. So, thanks, Anthony. So the agreement has 2 components. One is for the hard infrastructure improvements, which I mentioned includes electric, water, sewer, stormwater, and roadways, and the total amount of that is $1,335,000. The other piece of it is based on the new electric, water, sewer, and stormwater services that will be added based on the 230 housing units that are coming on board. And so there's been a rate study, or have been rate studies, that show that there is a little bit of wiggle room in order for us to provide an incentive to encourage those new hookups. So the agreement is set up that we're discussing 230 units. It might be a few more by the end of the day. It could be a few less, but the incentive will be based on the number of actual units that come to market, and will be given a certificate of completion. And that utility incentive fund has an estimated value of $163,147. If at some point in the future, and it's based on a 3-year return, that the project does not deliver the return as we've expected, the developer will have to pay the difference. If we happen to make more money than we anticipated, we keep that, we don't give it back to them. And there are some parameters regarding performance bond and some timeframes that have been established by the Community Redevelopment Agency through Jonah Leva's office, because there was also an incentive that was put together for the project from them. And if you have questions about that piece of it, she is here as well. But it's fairly simple. We do want to create a policy moving forward that will be coming back to you in the next couple of months, that we can offer definitely a revenue incentive to other investments in the city. The infrastructure one is a little more complicated because not always is there a defined infrastructure improvement that's been identified in the capital improvement program or has been identified because the project hasn't come forward yet, but we will likely have some sort of infrastructure incentive as well. And the goal is to have a dashboard on the website where a developer or prospective investor could type in the type of project they wanted to do, and it'll spit out a basic guesstimate of what the incentive would be. So this is the first one for the city, and we do anticipate there might be a few more in the next coming months. And I'm here to try to answer any questions you might have. Brian Shields and Ed Liberty are both here from the utilities, and then the whole crowd from the mid group is behind me. So hopefully we can address whatever concern or question you might have.
Okay, I just would like to remind commissioners that we're addressing the incentive packages only, not the actual project itself. So we won't be asking or answering any questions about the project. That'll come before us at another time. Again, this is strictly about the backup in your packets, which involves the incentive package. So, Commissioner Hardy, you had your light on first.
You know, what I'll say is I obviously support the incentive package. I think, you know, what it says here in the backup, and I'll talk into my microphone, what it says here in the backup is that we have to do a better job of encouraging development along certain commercial corridors, and Dixie Highway is one of those crucial corridors. And if we can strike a deal to encourage development where otherwise development would not occur, especially where this development has the opportunity to bring online housing units that people would like to have here in Lake Worth, that there are not many of, we should do that. And so this is a wonderful example of that. I look forward to voting for this. I look forward to this project coming before us so that we can discuss it at that time. But this is something that I think we should all support, and I can't wait to vote for it.
Vice Mayor.
And I too just have comments. I want to thank staff, water, electric, William, your department, Dolores, for thinking outside the box. You heard us talk about incentives, and you went above and beyond, and you found some of those incentives. Joan at the CRA and your staff, great job. You know, this is a derelict area that has sat empty for a long time. And thank you again for thinking outside the box. The mid, thank you for investing in Lake Worth. Thank you for, you know, looking at Lake Worth. And, you know, I think it's a great project, and I look forward to working with you.
Commissioner
Additional
Robinson.
comment is that we will be probably one of the few cities in the entire country, because of our electric utility, be able to provide a revenue incentive for investment on the 4 areas that we get revenue from, which is electric, water, sewer, and stormwater. So we do anticipate that this might likely be a very worthy award-winning project program that will demonstrate to other cities how you can encourage investment in distressed areas.
Absolutely. It's a great project.
I look forward to it then. Thank you for, I used to say at Planning and Zoning, thank you for investing in Lake Worth. Going above and beyond, you meant in creativity, not
Absolutely.
in payback.
Creativity. Well, that was our direction.
Right. So I'm ready to vote.
I'd also like to give some credit to Christy Godot, who spent an inordinate number of hours working with me and the other staff and putting together the agreement together. Without her assistance and due diligence, this probably would not have happened as quickly as it did, even though it did take a little bit of a while. So I do want to recognize her and thank Glenn Torsivi's office for having her there at our disposal to put it together.
Appreciate that.
Thanks,
Thank you, William.
Now, I just wanted to state too, before we vote, that that this group came before me to talk about the project or whatever. I just wanted to.
And likewise.
Yeah.
Likewise.
Yes, and
Okay.
I'm the liaison to the CRA, so I did meet with them.
Okay. Is that,
And
is
this,
that a,
and
is that
this,
a conflict or anything?
this financing has come before the CRA board.
Oh, it has already?
Yes.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we're the second.
And I was I was at those meetings also.
Okay. Ryan, do you have public comment on this?
Ryan Oblander, 1702 North 8th Street. I'm getting my tax money tonight.
Yeah.
No, I just wanted to say that I've been I moved here in 2005, and this property has pretty much been not vacant. I mean, there's spent paintball in the party rental store for a few years, but then pretty much I drive by that place every single day, and it just looks like a storage lot for some construction or something like that. So it's great that this development is going through. I'm not speaking on behalf of the Sunset Ridge Neighborhood Association on this. I'm saying personally, I think it's a great idea. I haven't even approached the neighborhood with this one yet, but yeah, like I said, the property has sat idle for the past 10 years, but what has not sat idle was the traffic in front of that property. And there have been numerous car flips and accidents occurring on Dixie Highway right there in between 17th and 16th because you know, the police are doing what they can to reduce speeding. But if these things do go through, like I cut myself off last time talking about the traffic concerns, and 17th Avenue North is going to have single family homes like blowing up like crazy. 19th and A needs a stop sign. 17th and Dixie would be a great candidate for an actual traffic stop light if the neighbors want to leave out. But if you don't want to, I'm not sure how that works. But if the citizens of this apartment complex want to go into the neighborhood, that 17th Avenue stretch up until D Street is like still bumpy, potholes, things like that. And it was not on the road bond improvements. So if something like that could be looked at for this brand new development to get this street up just enough, and maybe look into traffic light considerations, either at 17th or 16th.
Ryan, I'd like to, if we can, maybe arrange after this a meeting with Mike, with you and Jamie on some of the concerns on some of those. I think that road is under our regular capital improvement projects and not under the road bond.
Right.
Because it's got other things happening in it, so I'd want to check that out for you, because I think that is, I know the road you're talking about, and that's a mess.
I can address part of that. The part of the 17th Avenue that's west of the railroad tracks is in a capital improvement program to have some work done to it.
That's what I thought.
Part of this incentive package includes redoing 17th Avenue from Dixie to the railroad track. You will also be hearing shortly over the summer a review of a corridor study. We'll be looking at how to reduce traffic speeds on Dixie Highway to make it more pedestrian friendly, bike friendly, more aesthetically pleasing, and there is planning in the works and likely some money to do something equivalent to a road diet and improve Dixie Highway in the next 4 years. So we are going to be contemplating and addressing some of the concerns that you have, and they will be coming to fruition very shortly after the project is finished or about the time that it is.
I just also want us, as we start to bring in more single-family residential and apartments and things that we do, and I know that we're dealing with FDOT in regards to Dixie Highway, right, and Federal Highway and whatnot, but we really need, since the process may take a little bit longer, we really need to look at signal lights for these new residential neighborhoods going in and out of them and getting a jump on FDOT for that, because that is a direction that we're going to need that. And again, rather than you're going to have the inclusion of the new single family homes down off of A Street and whatnot. And most of these people, I would think they're coming in, they want that commute to 95, so they'll probably be using Dixie. I don't see them going through residential, but who knows? That connection to A straight up is awful appealing. So we're going to have to look at traffic slowdowns. Jamie, are you listening to me on A and some of those other streets to make sure that we're directing traffic the right way? But I really like when we had that new development on 10th Avenue, and I was talking about, again, signal light, please, for the love of God, at least on 10th Avenue, you got all that 95, I couldn't believe they weren't putting a signal there. They were even balking at it. So let's look at what we can do as a community to make sure for the public safety of our, that we start to look at some alternates. And when we have to deal with FDOT, we get a jump on it early so we're not coming in after the game.
Right.
Thank you. Commissioner Hardy?
Yeah, I just want to say, in addition to looking at the signals, I think we should probably also look, and in addition to looking at the signals, in addition to looking at reducing lanes on Dixie Highway, I think we should also look at narrowing the lanes that currently exist if we're concerned about, traffic speeds. One of the surefire ways to slow traffic down is to make the lane narrower. And so, the 12-foot lane is something that I think we have to reconsider just across the board, not just on Dixie Highway, but also on 8th Street and, some of these areas. So, yeah.
Yeah. Vice Mayor?
And continuing on with that, I know that Joan at the CRA and William has talked about developments like this. When I talked to the MID, also we took into consideration possible things that Dixie Highway would be doing, so they're abreast on that. New signage in the areas. Some of the concerns, Ryan, from your neighborhood was if something happened on Dixie Highway, it might push people in more into the residence, cutting through, like they do in my district where they cut from Dixie to Federal. We're looking at street calming, so we just need to make sure we look at all that as these new developments come online. And like the mayor suggested, Ryan, because you're there and you see it, please make sure that you're at the table and that you're talking to the city manager and William when, you know, because you see it more than we do or they do, and just so they know what's going on in your neighborhood and some of the concerns, so we can address it prior to the mid getting done, and then we're circling back around to try to cross our T's and dot our I's.
And as many in the neighborhood associations know, you can do it one of two ways. You can come in and we can sit down, the city manager and Jamie or whatever, and go through them together, if you want to do that, or you can send me a list and I'll go through them with them, and I'll call you and have any questions if you have time restraints. But let's just do it and sit down. Just make me a list and we'll get on it. Okay. Thank you all very much. We've got a motion on the floor in a second. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Good
Welcome.
job. Welcome. All right. Item C is added. It came from the consent agenda, which was A, contract and sale of purchase of surplus property, 1506 South J Street, 626 Latona Avenue, and 639 Washington Avenue. Commissioner Robinson, you asked for that pulled, so did you want to?
I asked because I think the delicacy of selling city property in neighborhoods that are challenged, the vetting process of purchasers, we should have an interest in. And when I asked who...
Excuse me, I believe you're going to have to take a motion and a second. I apologize.
Sorry, I was looking at his consent agenda. Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All right.
So,
Continue.
my concern is who's buying city property, especially in vulnerable neighborhoods. More so than when a developer comes, they can have to, you know, go through a process of that is credible.
Well, do we ask everybody who's buying property in the city who's buying it?
City property.
That was the question, and if we know who's buying it, then I'm fine with it. I just asked who was buying it and didn't get an answer. That's why I pulled it. But I do want to emphasize the importance of who is buying city property, especially in vulnerable areas.
City attorney, what's the policy on that?
Once the commission designates property as surplus, the city goes through a process where they put the property out basically for bid, and these are the prices that came in. I'm not sure who these particular buyers are. I'm not sure if William knows specifically who they are either, and I didn't know there's any direction from
Let
the city
Commissioner
to
Robinson
kind of vet owners.
Well, my intention is to put some caveats on selling city property when we put them out to bid, with the understanding of the intention of the buyer or the intention of the city for the buyer. But, you know, we're just throwing it out. It seems we're anxious to just unload property, and I'm not anxious to unload city property unless we know a little about what's happening in the future in terms of buyer and intent.
Okay, city attorney, I don't think we can know the intent of the buyer, but we can create a list of policies that all of city properties that we sell can be sold to X, Y, and Z, could we not?
You could develop that kind
For
of
what purposes? I
policy
mean, we
where
can't vet, I mean, we're not gonna know everybody that applies online to look at a certain property, or whatever. But
there is obviously pros and cons. You know, the more restrictions you put on, the smaller your market is for the next buyer. But there could be certain properties. I don't know whether you want a blanket policy or whether you want specific properties over a certain size in certain neighborhoods.
that would get difficult.
You know, so you maybe want to consider if that's a path you want to go down, a really robust discussion about how much do you want to restrict your own hands on selling your property.
Or is there one thing, Commissioner Robinson, that you are specifically not looking for in a property that the city owns?
No, I'm all in favor of moving, you know, churning property, but I think we should be cautious in terms of, and I see caveats are every day. We can put an understanding of sale that it's going to happen in a year. It's going to knowing what it's going to be, why it's being sold. You know what the intention of the buyer. We can specify what we want on the property. As a seller, it's our property.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I just want to walk a fine line here because I just want to say that we can create a list of criteria that anyone who purchases city property can be used for X, Y, and Z. Yes, that could be to be able to tell somebody, okay, well, you bought the property, and then I'm going to come back and say to you, well, we don't like what your usage is of that is something that can get the city into trouble legally time and time again. So
no, we do it beforehand.
We'd have to do it beforehand, and that would be something we could put on as an agenda item and discuss what those would be, and that could be for the next meeting or the next meeting that we're able to add it to the agenda. I'd be more than happy to do that. Do my fellow commissioners feel the same way?
Yeah.
They would want to add what types of things that we would want to do that?
This might help you. The original surplus list that was created through the Planning and Zoning Board and brought to the commission is over 6 years old. These are the last 3 properties from that surplus list. It has taken us over 6 years to sell these properties. Florida statute requires that we evaluate the city's properties if they are appropriate for surplus every 3 years. Under our charter, it does stipulate that when we're evaluating properties that are available for surplus, and we identify those, then they have to be identified whether they're appropriate for affordable housing or for transfer to the CRA or a similar nonprofit. If that property is not appropriate for that type of use, then it can be put out for surplus sale. Since this is the end of the line for this group of properties, when we identify, and right now I think we only have one that has not gone through the process that was given to us through a co-compliance negotiation. There may be another one in the next couple of months. We will be bringing forward to you again the item to surplus possibly 1 or 2 properties. At that time, I would consider it be appropriate to have a discussion of what stipulations you'd want to put on those properties in making them surplus. The other unusual caveat about this is because we were not able to sell the properties ourselves directly with staff. We did go into a contract with the real estate asset disposition LLC with City Reed, and they are a private real estate company that marketed the properties. They were told we cannot take anything less than what the charter stipulates as the value of the property, so they have negotiated the sales of these 3 properties. You approved 2 other sales negotiated by them 2 meetings ago. And so they have negotiated with the 3 entities, the 3 LLCs. We have not met with them or interacted in any way. There is a buyer's agent here. I requested, and we did request the buyer to be here, but at the time that I came to the commission meeting, we had not heard back from Reed or the representative that the buyer was able to be here physically. So I'm not sure who you are, but maybe you are the buyer's agent that was going to be here.
Yeah, you know, Commissioner Robinson seems to have 2 requests, and they both seem to be very reasonable. If we're selling a piece of surplus property, that, you know, that's fine. That's not necessarily controversial. But if Commissioner Robinson wants to know who the buyer is, I think Commissioner Robinson should be able to know who the buyer is, even though there might not be an established process for conveying that information. It's a simple question: who's the buyer? He should be able to get that information, and he should not have to ask for it in a public meeting. That's number one. I think the number 2 question is equally reasonable. Can we craft a process that allows us to be a little more discriminating when we sell property? I understand that these events are rare, and I understand that they're not necessarily controversial. But, you know, again, you know, what are we trying to do? Optimize, right? You know, we're trying to get the best possible outcome for every possible action that we take. And if there's a way to kind of summarize what it is that we do and don't want these properties to become, and if we can create a set of criteria for, you know, buyers, if we can, you know, choose, then, you know, I think we should, you know, look at that. And if we can, if it's not something that we're allowed to do for some reason, then okay. But, you know, I think it's a reasonable request to see, you know, especially, as he said, if it's in a vulnerable neighborhood. So, you know, that said, I'm going to vote for this tonight. But I just wanted to say that he had a reasonable set of requests.
I think the gentleman standing before us can tell us who the buyers are.
My name is Luban Cuseno. I represent the real estate broker who represents the buyer. Actually, the buyer is here, but she doesn't like talking about it. So basically, she's buying the 3 lots to build a single-family house, which is approved by zoning. We already do our due diligences on City of Lakewood. So, and I have a set of plans where I have another investor buying, building 2 properties on MS3. One is on 313 NS3. The other one is 405 SM3. And they went to the Board of Commissioners because that's an historical district. They approved the house. So she's planning on building something similar to that.
Are these homes going to be purchased or rentals?
Purchase. Mainly it will be for sale. If in case that she cannot sell it, of course she's gonna rent.
Okay. Thank you very much. Vice Mayor?
Okay, I agree with Commissioner Robinson, Commissioner Hardy, because if you remember, when we actually looked at the surplus, I asked some of the same questions. Could we put stipulations on them? And specifically for the reason that we've had people that have come in and built in areas and taken it off the tax rolls, and I specifically asked, could we, put something in there, Mr. Attorney, that leaves it on the tax rolls? If we're going to sell city property, I would like it to be, brought up to today's standards, whether it has something on it or it's vacant, and put back on the tax rolls. That's the purpose is, in my opinion, to put it on the tax rolls. One of the other stipulations is to identify the owner and let them know. At least 2 of these properties are in some of our challenged areas, and when you buy, I want, as someone that's selling the property on behalf of the residents, I want you to know that there are challenges, because we've had, people come and build and then come screaming at us because they didn't know they were in challenged areas. So, I just want to make sure that as we put protocols, that's one of the things too, is that we share, there's a reason why these properties are available, and that they are at a lower rate. And we thank you for investing in the Lake Worth and seeing the vision and coming in. But, also as we move forward, to have those policies and procedures so we can limit. And, I embrace you, and what you're doing is great, but there's some other people that don't have the best interest of the residents in the city of Lake Worth that want to acquire property. So I'd like to look at anything within the law that we can do to maybe stop some of those practices, because we're already fighting some of those practices from the dais.
Just one other thing, when we do real estate, I would like us first to look at all the real estate agents that are stationed or based in Lake Worth before we go beyond Lake Worth to hire.
You can't necessarily do that legally. Glenn talked about that.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about that.
Okay. Well, but we can certainly make sure they're up for
that they're
business
included in the process.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, we've tried that before.
And, well, just briefly, William, when you come back, maybe have, with the attorney's direction, how we pick that LLC versus a local realtor, and why that process happened, just so we can keep everything clear.
Again,
That's for another date.
yeah, and I just want to, I'm in support of this. I'm in support of approval of these. I'm not a problem. But again, just rounding us up is that we need to create policies and procedures so that it'll be a consistent, presence in the future to cherry pick who we're going to do and micromanage what person comes forward this time and what person comes forward now is a nightmare. So, put the rules in place and we'll all follow them. Okay? All right, we've got a motion on the floor in a second. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. And thank you very much. Moving on to Lake Worth Electric Utility consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We've got item 14, the city attorney's reports, which are coming to be such a joy. I'm really appreciating them, city attorney. Here's item A, request for advice from the commission concerning pending litigation.
Yeah, I'm requesting an attorney-client session, May 15th, 5 o'clock, in the city manager's office regarding the case of Vieira versus Lake Worth. We had a session on that a month or two ago. Just to follow up on that, it's a case pending in the 15th Judicial Circuit. In attendance will be the mayor, city commission, the city manager, myself, Matt Ransdell from our office, and I think this time will get coordinated through Sylvania in terms of that.
Okay. Item B?
Item B was a request of the commission at the last meeting regarding a lawsuit that's been filed on behalf of a number of cities. It involves basically a protest against the state's law that city officials can be fined and basically get in trouble if they pass any laws dealing with gun control or ammunition. So the city of Weston has filed a lawsuit asserting home rule issues, but particularly as to that legislation. So that was the request that was made. So I brought back a copy of that lawsuit that's been filed. There's, I believe, 9 or 10 cities that have signed on already. Others are signing on. A city that wants to sign on would pay $10,000 to that law firm to be added to the case. Frankly, it's your discretion as to whether you want to join the lawsuit, but if not, the same result will probably prevail. With so many cities involved, there's enough cities in there, and if you wanted to put 10,000 into it, you could. Otherwise, you can simply just be kept abreast of the litigation as it goes forward. Or if you want, you can pass a motion or a resolution in support of the litigation and just let them know you support their efforts without putting $10,000 into it. Because there's apparently enough money to fund this lawsuit. At $10,000 a city, I think the attorney estimated $150,000 total cost, and last I knew there were 90,000, 9 cities already in, and many others considering.
Okay, and item C, moratorium?
There's been some discussion regarding concerns about various uses in the downtown district, particularly tattoo parlors, vape shops, and perhaps some other uses. And the question is, if the commission has those concerns, if you wanted to direct us to come back with a proposed moratorium ordinance prohibiting any of those types of uses, such as tattoo parlors or vape shops. I think historically they've been primarily in the Dixie corridor. They've not really been downtown on Lake and Lucerne. And if that's not a concern, that's fine. If it is a concern, then you give us that direction. We'll bring back an ordinance like we did medical marijuana, putting a moratorium in place for some period of time until you can thrash out what rules you do want downtown for those type of uses.
Hardy?
If it turns out that this board believes that tattoo parlors, vape shops, etc., do not belong in the downtown mixed-use zoning category, why, I guess, would we go for a moratorium rather than simply removing them from the permitted uses, whether it's administrative or by right or what have you?
Get a moratorium passed a lot more quickly, and then when you go through the whole planning and zoning process, that would take a little longer. So it should, almost again like medical marijuana, you put a stop on it while you develop whatever regulations you need to develop.
Okay.
And the stop could be for as short as a few months to a year, generally is the accepted time frame, while staff studies it and brings back to you any recommendations.
I would support a moratorium.
Vice Mayor?
I too support a moratorium. I've heard from quite a few of the merchants downtown. And I think our concern, or their concern, would be for years, we've always directed, especially tattoo parlors, and like medical marijuana, I support tattoo parlors, I support vape shops, but they've always been directed to Dixie Highway. And I always say that your downtown is your heart, and if your heart's not healthy, your city's not healthy. And I believe right now your heart's not healthy. And if you are a longtime resident, you remember years ago we had nothing, or we had very few other shops. We had a lot of vintage shops. And if you weren't into vintage shops, you weren't really patronizing the downtown. We've now taken time over the years to diversify the downtown and actually find things that bring in all different walks of life. We already have multiple vape shops in the downtown, and I think my concern is moving forward with a moratorium now, helps us control a little bit more of what goes in our downtown, and as our Dixie corridor grows, we can embrace some of the other businesses, but we have very little leeway from a city to stop merchants or owners or different companies from coming into the downtown. But I think by having a moratorium, Right now, it just gives us a little time. We kind of got caught with medical marijuana, and we have 2 that were already in the pipeline. I would just like to get ahead of this and be able to have a little conversation before our downtown grows into something that we may not be comfortable with.
Mr. Robinson?
I'm certainly in favor of a moratorium. I'd like to argue an administrative decision. That to me sounds like a subjective interpretation. Is that, can you tell me how we can make an administrative decision that can't be argued?
Well, that's one of the reasons why I'm suggesting a moratorium, so you can have that full conversation. That's going to take a little longer than just putting a moratorium ordinance together. That's a good point, and we'll certainly discuss that with Mark and that shop in terms of the process that should ultimately be developed. But for the short term, this is a way to kind of put the brakes on while you have that conversation.
But in the meantime, we have an application for a tattoo parlor downtown.
I'm not sure that we do. I'm not sure if we do or we don't. To me, that's kind of irrelevant. The question is if you want to, if there's one.
Well, no, it isn't. If it's legal, if it's like we have 2 marijuana shops, they were applied for before a moratorium. I'm asking, and I think we should know.
I'm not aware of any that, for example, is in the pipeline, so to speak. I don't know if that's the case or not, and we'll find that out. If there is one, they'll certainly come forward and let us know.
Then we can vote on a moratorium tonight?
If you pass a motion tonight directing me to do that, they'll be back on your next agenda. We'll bring the ordinance back on next agenda, and the city certainly has an argument that the moratorium would have started as of tonight, and there's a stronger argument that it starts once the ordinance is started, but at least they have the argument that it would start tonight.
Vice Mayor?
And that's what I was trying to get clear, because we heard that with medical marijuana, because there were already 2 in the pipeline, they were kind of in. Right now, we were always under the understanding that tattoo parlors specifically would only be allowed in on Dixie Highway, but now we're hearing, and I think Mark reads it, that it's up to staff's discretion, and I think that's what Mr. Robinson was alluding to, and I don't need to speak on it, I don't think, but by calling for a moratorium or supporting a moratorium tonight, that kind of starts the process and puts us ahead of, unlike where we were with medical marijuana, correct?
That's the goal.
All right, I want to speak here for a second. I don't understand the concern. Well, first of all, I think that we have to start thinking about having, like we have, you can't have a liquor establishment within X feet of another liquor establishment. How we have in regards to those. We need to start thinking about what occupation, so to speak, in the down, because it always seems to be in the downtown area. So we need to have a good workshop, I think, on that for it. If there was a millennial in the room, oh, there's one in the back. There's one in the back. Oh, and Commissioner Hardy, sorry. They would look at you with cross eyes right now and say, tattoos today are commonplace. They're considered an art form. We're an arts community. Some of these places, you go out to some major cities, they're like museums in their own right. I think that, in today's society, well, I'm scared to death of needles. My mother always told me, she's like, I never had to worry about you getting a tattoo because she would have passed out by the time they came out with the needle. It's just, it's so commonplace. And some of these places in high-end cities like Los Angeles and New York or whatever, they're institutions and like I said, like museums. So I'm sure if some, a lot of young people were in the room, they would kind of say, lady, hello, old people, you're completely out of it. Yeah. So, I mean, it's kind of interesting, but, I'm willing to have this conversation. I think that times have changed and whatever, I would want to see the type of business that it is, if there was a business or if there's not a business. Let's have that conversation and at least get those things on the books so we don't have any questions or concerns about them in the future. We really need, if you notice, I keep coming back to the same thing, Mark, is that we really need to, we've laid policy and procedure on some of the major ordinances in regards to life safety over the last issue. Now we have to start to fine tune our policies and procedures for some of these things so that we can say that we can come to every situation being fair and consistent in regards to it and not be litigating a kind of business that I would want, but he wouldn't want, or this one would want, but that one doesn't, it's not fair. It doesn't appear to be fair, at least, I'm sure, to any business applying for something like that. Commissioner Hardy?
Yes. So I'm a millennial, and I also have a tattoo. I just don't think that tattoo parlors belong within the downtown mixed use category. And if I were to change my mind on that, I still don't think I would believe that downtown, on Lake and on Lucerne, kind of like how we did with the medical use, I don't think that they belong on the main strips. And I think, we should have that conversation, but certainly, that's where I exist. I recognize that they are very commonplace, but heck, gentlemen clubs are very commonplace. I don't think they belong in a downtown, and I think that there's a stigma attached to them. And right now, part of our turning around the city is fighting a stigma that the city has a certain character and a certain quality, and I think we want to show that we're more than that. And so that's certainly, where I stand. I would like to say that I think we need to have a moratorium discussion about banks within the downtown mixed use thing, and I think we, and not just within the downtown mixed use, but like along the entire core area. I think we probably have too many banks. So if you can add that to the discussion, we can develop policies around that. I think we should definitely do that.
And I want more shoe stores, and we know. Did you have something else?
Just one more thing. Mark, I thank you for coming in and taking a new look and approach at it. But just for the record, for years, I always thought that it was not allowed for tattoo parlors because staff had always told me we only allow them on Dixie Highway. I did not know it was at their discretion. So for years, we had some great establishments and tattoo parlors that are well known that wanted to open in our downtown, and we have always told them, no, you have to go to Dixie Highway, and a lot of them have opened on Dixie Highway. So I just think at this time, how do you go back and tell them, well, we made a mistake and you can't? I think moving forward, we need to have this conversation and like Commissioner Hardy said, set those standards. And again, I embrace all businesses, I support all businesses, but there's certain areas I'd like to be able to help direct those.
If I may, just as a reminder, we have a LDR text amendment moving forward now. If upon first reading you feel that you want to remove a certain use from a district, I look at the attorney, I believe we can make that change between first reading and second reading. Such as if tattoo parlors are currently allowed in the mixed-use Dixie Highway, the artisanal industrial, and the downtown zone. If you say, can we move that from the downtown zone, we can do that with this process, with this ordinance currently. So keep that in mind as we move forward, and that's coming before you right now for the May 15th meeting.
Okay. So in that case, I would suggest either a motion that says directing us either to prepare the ordinance, the moratorium ordinance, or make the change to the LDR's text amendment. So we'll look at that and make sure that that's a change that's allowable. But one way or the other, on your next meeting, you'll have a prohibition on tattoo parlors and vape stores in the downtown core to either one of those two vehicles.
What do you do with the existing vape store that's on Lake Avenue?
Well, if they're already there, they're there.
They're there.
This should only be prospective for the future.
Okay. Yes, I like that.
So
either one or the other.
Is there a motion?
Yes.
Seconded.
And the
There's
motion
can
is for.
To include the change in the LDR.
Either the LDRs or a moratorium.
I would prefer that I had more time to think about this and look in and investigate it, but I mean, you can vote on it and go ahead. We've got a motion on the floor in a second. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
We got a motion
Aye.
on the floor.
Well, I want to stand.
What's the
But we
motion?
still have conversation.
What's the motion?
Yeah, I want to understand.
The motion was to bring back either as a moratorium or as an item on as a part of the LDR discussion. Either way, depending on which is valid, according to the city attorney, it'll come back on the next agenda. A moratorium on it.
It's kind of wide open, but yes,
Aye.
Aye.
So aye, nay. Motion carries 3-1. Okay. We've got city manager. Do you have a report?
Well, are we going to have any discussion on?
We're done. City manager, do you have a report?
I just want to say thank you to Peggy Fisher for these $2 lights.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Peggy Fisher, for the $2
And
light.
it's an incredible example that a simple solution is sometimes the most elegant.
And I don't know why my battery is running down.
We took yours out.
You
We
never
took
I
yours
wonder
out.
why. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all. Have a great night. Do you really?
8:59.
Have you ever been to some of these places? They have balls like they have.